Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today, we have an exciting what-if story for you. If you enjoy these kinds of videos and want to see more, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Now, let's get started. What if Naruto became the first Jinchuriki Hokage at age 12 episode 2? Okay, so I'm just supposed to pop a water balloon with my chakra. No problem. Naruto proudly claimed. The trio of travelers were currently on the outskirts of the town they had reached only an hour beforehand. In that hour, however, they already managed to reserve a hotel room and purchase the necessary training tools for Naruto. Jiraiya had explained and showed Naruto the first step to the Rasengan training, leading to Naruto's optimistic demeanor. Jiraiya snickered. Let's see about that. Make me 10 of your Kage Bunshin and we will begin. Jiraiya told his pupil. Naruto nodded and summoned the 10 clones. Pointing to 6 of them, Jiraiya said, okay, you form in a line to my left. Looking at the other 4, he pointed towards Shin. You 4, you will be working with Shin farther away. You will be mastering the Shunshin. You had good progress, but that is supposed to be that you shouldn't have to yell the name of, get it? The 4 Bunshin nodded, deciding it wouldn't be that bad of a task. Naruto already thought highly of Shin as a sensei, so a little extra training would help. Plus, he thought to himself, he might be able to convince him to teach him a little swordsmanship. So, those 4 Bunshin left with Shin to a place farther off with more open land to Shunshin in. The real Naruto was curious at what the 6 Bunshin would end up doing. He was surprised as Jiraiya started handing them water balloons. Soon all 6 were holding water balloons, and Naruto was mad. What the heck, Iro Sennin? He yelled at his sensei. How come my Bunshin is doing the training for the Rasengan? Shouldn't I be learning it? Jiraiya shook his head. Nope, Gaki, I have different plans for you today. But first, you 6 head off over there and practice. If you feel low on chakra, call out and tell me. Then disperse. Alrighty. The 6 Bunshin understood orders and marched 50 yards off and began to attempt to burst the balloons. The frustrated Naruto looked up to his sensei. Well, Iro Sennin. What am I gonna be doing? Jiraiya casually turned to his student. First off, stop calling me Iro Sennin, Brad. Secondly, we are going to spar. One-on-one. That means no Bunshin. So get into your taijutsu stance and let's begin. Naruto smirked as he slid into his stance. I'm gonna whip your butt, old man. Jiraiya looked over his pupil's stance and shook his head. Gaki, I don't think you could whip a civilian's butt fighting like that. Who taught you? Naruto was offended by that statement. Hey, I taught myself. I can kick ass with it too. Don't underestimate me. Jiraiya rolled his eyes. Of course you taught it to yourself. Didn't Kakashi say anything about it to you? Naruto put his eyes towards the ground. He said it stunk, but I could make it work since I am really strong and can outlast most people. His eyes shot up. But I beat Neji with it, so it can't be that bad, can it? Jiraiya shook his head. It does stink, badly. I didn't think you were actually this bad off. I can already tell you are only able to survive this long in a fight due to the swarm tactic you like to use. An academy student might be able to beat you up, which is sad. Naruto narrowed his eyes. I'll show you what stinks, which is you. Naruto rushed the Sannin and was flat on his back 3 seconds later, face shoved in the ground. Jiraiya held his head down as he spoke. Naruto, your taijutsu sucks. Accept it. However, as your super awesome sensei, I am here to fix that. Now, we are going to go over the basic stances first and how you move in them. He heard a mumble as a reply, so he lifted Naruto's face out of the ground. What was that? Naruto spit the dirt out of his mouth and asked. Shouldn't I be using my Kage Bunshin then, if I suck as bad as you say, which I don't? Jiraiya shook his head. Nope. First off, you need to be able to take on an opponent on your own, and secondly, you are already going to have a headache tonight from all of the knowledge you will be getting from your clones. Why should I make your body sorer than it will already be? A knowing smile was on his face. With his other hand, Jiraiya pulled Naruto to his feet. Releasing him, Jiraiya turned serious. Now Gaki, we got a few hours before sunset, so wipe off that dirt and get ready to work harder than you ever have in your life. Despite hating Iro Sennin at that moment, Naruto couldn't help but smile. It might suck right now, but if the pervert could teach him to fight like that, he would be getting stronger in no time. Sasuke was pissed. That wasn't exactly a revolutionary statement, but he was still pissed. His brother had been in Konoha. His brother had been in Reach. And he was stopped because of Shikamaru. The lazy-ass Nara, the one who somehow had been promoted to Chunin, had trapped him and prevented him from chasing down his brother and exacting revenge on his brother or die trying. Someone had the genius idea of having Shikamaru watch over Sasuke while the Jounin scoured the perimeter for any signs of the duo of invaders. They were stuck in an empty hospital room for the time being. So Sasuke was scheming ways to escape from the damned Nara and find his brother while Shikamaru relaxed on the bed. Suddenly, he heard Shikamaru sighed. Look, you can try all you want, you are staying here with me. So stop planning to knock me out or whatever and calm down. The final two words set off Sasuke. Calm down. Calm down. You want me to calm down? Itachi is out there, free, while I'm stuck in here, being watched by some lazy ass. Plus, my brother was investigating Naruto of all people. Why would he want him? Shikamaru sighed. Again. Troublesome. I could tell you, but what's the point? Sasuke raised his eyebrow. What would Nara know? Then he remembered what Naruto had wanted done, putting Nara on his council for some reason. Would that mean he knew? You know. How come you know and I don't? I was there yesterday, I know everything, so why don't I know? Shikamaru raised his eyebrow. You were at the council meeting. Sasuke nodded. Yes. I made the deciding vote. He was going to get this information from Shikamaru. Shikamaru looked around, making sure they were alone in the room they had been escorted to. So the goddamn is. The dove, yeah. Now, tell me what I'm missing. Shikamaru frowned and muttered to himself his catchphrase. Then, directed towards the Uchiha, Shikamaru spoke. Did they tell you about him? Fox problem? Shikamaru tentatively asked and wasn't surprised when Sasuke nodded. Alright, so apparently a group of people want something to do with it and maybe even other things like it, like the one Gaara had. Sasuke shuddered as recalled the demon he had watched Naruto beat. And one of those members is your brother and that fish guy. From what I figure, your brother is now after Naruto for the fox. Sasuke's eyes went wide. My brother is chasing Naruto for it. Do you think he will try and follow him on his search for his Tsunade women? Sasuke was tense and it was obvious for Shikamaru to read what he wanted to do. Look, if you try to chase down Naruto in case your brother attacks him, that would be stupid. You would be leading them right to him. It would be better if you just stay here and train. You want to kill your brother, right? Stick around Naruto and you will have your chance. Shikamaru also knew about the curse seal and the purposes Orochimaru had for Sasuke and he thought this was a perfect way to keep him in Konoha. If he knew where his brother was coming, why would he want to leave? He would always want to be nearby, so when his brother made a move, he would have a chance to kill him. It was a perfect strategy, considering what he had to go on. Sasuke nodded. Fine, I won't go after Itachi. Can I go now? And do what? Shikamaru asked, fairly sure of his response. Train. Sasuke predictably said. Shikamaru thought about it and decided it would be too troublesome to try and stop him. Fine, sure, just don't go looking around for your brother. No offense, but you aren't ready to face him. And you do want to kill him, right? Sasuke frowned but gave a single nod to Shikamaru's statement. Sasuke then left out the window, much to Shikamaru's relief. Maybe he could get some relief. Shikamaru? Where's Sasuke-kun? Are you two okay? Scratch that. Damn blondes. Sasuke had no idea where he was going, but he knew where he wanted to be. He felt a power coming from that Danzo man, an aura that told him he could give him the strength he needed to defeat Itachi, even more than Kakashi ever could. He muttered aloud, loud enough for a nearby teammate to hear, where could you be, Danzo? The teammate came into view immediately. Hello Quacky. Better, much better. You are getting control of how far you want to go and you have stopped calling out the name of the when you are using it. I think that is a good set for today. You don't want to fry Hokage-sama's brains, do you? Shin applauded the Bunshin for the 2 hours of hard work they had put in. The Bunshin, however, were not as pleased. Come on, Shin-sensei, didn't the boss tell you to stop calling him Hokage-sama? Not until he gets the hat, at least. The least tired of the clones told him. Shin frowned at his mistake. Ah, yes, I am sorry. It is just, I was taught to always call your superiors by their proper title. And you are Hokage-sama, so it is only natural to call you Hokage-sama. Shin explained to the Bunshin. The Bunshin rolled his eyes. Whatever. So, we aren't ready to pop yet and boss was wondering if you could teach us how to fight with a sword. Shin looked surprised. You want to learn the art of the sword? Naruto Bunshin nodded. Well yeah, swords are cool. We remember, one time in the Land of Waves, we fought this really tough swordsman called Zabuza, who? Shin stopped him. Wait, you fought Mamachi Zabuza? The Bunshin let out a smile. Kinda. My team and Kakashi-sensei fought against him and his student, Haku. Kakashi fought Zabuza, though boss had to save Kakashi once from being trapped by Zabuza. Though in the end, Kakashi-sensei beat him, his sword was so awesome. It could kick some serious ass. The boss asked Kakashi-sensei about it and he said it could repair itself by the blood of your enemies. If it wasn't so sick, it would be so cool. Shin was now interested. And what happened to the sword after your sensei defeated him? Well, we left it at the grave we buried him in. Shin was surprised. You buried him? You know he was worth 18 million ryo, the bounty on him was that large. The sword alone is probably worth a few million ryo. The Bunshin eyes went wide, but then he shrugged his shoulders. Wow, that's a lot. But Zabuza was a good guy after all, he killed this slimy businessman Gato before he died, and he actually did care about his student, especially after Haku saved his life. He taught him that ninjas are just emotionless, disposable tools, but boss doesn't think that's right. Boss even says he is gonna make his own way of the ninja, one that is more right. Shin was surprised by this adamant belief, as Zabuza taught in the same way Lord Danzo taught. But Lord Danzo supported a Hokage who disagreed with his teaching methods. It was most curious. Who was right, his lord or his Hokage? The Bunshin broke him out of his thoughts. So, can you teach us how to fight with a sword? He asked, all four Bunshin pleading with their eyes. Shin inspected the Bunshin and made a surprising statement. No. The Bunshin were shocked and immediately launched into complaints, but Shin stopped them. I do not think the sword is the right choice for you. One who masters the sword needs to be well disciplined and rigid. You, Hokage-sama, are more free-flowing and wild. You would do more damage to yourself than to your opponent. The head Bunshin was mad. That stinks. Come on, can't you show us anything cool? You owe us. Shin knew that he didn't owe them anything in actuality, but he felt generous and decided to teach them another trick he knew from studying with Danzo. Fine then. Do you have any kunai on you right now? The four Bunshin were surprised, but one was especially quick to recover and check. Yeah, we do. Shin looked them over and pointed to the two worst off ones. You two, disperse. You are too tired and would only slow your own progress. The two grumbled, but listened. Shin noticed the two Bunshin still there were a bit better off. Keeping that in his mind, just like he was going to keep the conversation they just had in mind, he drew out the shuriken he kept on him at all times. Tell me, Bunshin, what do you know about chakra threads? Elsewhere, a slightly rejuvenated Naruto was being beaten into proper stances. They were on their final set for the day after 2 hours. Jiraiya knew that it would take a few weeks of doing this before Naruto was set fundamentally into jutsu, but it would be well worth it. With his natural speed and strength, an army of well-trained fighters at his disposal would be a threat that could keep many a foe at bay from Konoha's walls. Reminding himself of his Toad sensei, stick in hand, he swatted at the left leg of Naruto. It is off-center, Naruto. You need to center your foot or else your opponent will be able to lead you in a battle to terrain they prefer. Grumbling, but tired of the stick blows, he centered his foot. Holding the stance, he felt a light tap to his right elbow. Arm up a bit higher, so it is easier to extend with full force. Naruto followed the demented sage's, in his mind, orders. Then, the demented man spoke. Left punch. Right punch. Left knee. Right boot. Naruto was quick to follow the instructions of blow selection. He threw a left punch, meant to attack the right side of a person's face and force them to go right into the right punch aiming for the temple, in which they would duck down into his left knee, and as they rise up to avoid such a blow, they open the abdomen to a well-placed kick that could crush a rib, rupture an organ, or simply just give the fighter some room to cast a. Naruto didn't see the intricacy of this set, one of the hundreds he needed to learn to ever fully master Taijutsu in the Minset of Midogai, but simply knew it was what Jiraiya told him to do. Jiraiya saw Naruto's body naturally follow this progression, even if it was inaccurate, and was somewhat pleased. Deciding to spare the rod, he gave a simple nod. Reset. Naruto immediately went back into the form he had been in, hoping it was properly done. He shifted his feet just so, and remembered to clench his fist only so tight. Jiraiya was pleased at the progress. Good work, Naruto. Now, I want to see a right roundhouse, left head kick, right palm strike. Naruto quickly performed the combination, so Jiraiya nodded slowly as he performed them. Deciding they were close enough, Jiraiya decided to test Naruto on what he learned. Stance 2, Combo 1. Naruto looked shocked at the request. You expect me to remember that? Yes, Jiraiya put it bluntly, you will be expected to remember dozens of combinations of taijutsu set to execute in combat, along with the simple need of memorization your future position dictates. Now, try and remember Stance 2, Combo 1. Slowly and hesitantly Naruto slid into the attack position he thought was Stance 2. In a stance based on being able to move, he kept his hands high for the ability to quickly attack. Then, taking his best guess, he launched a 3-punch combo that seemed right to him. However, Jiraiya just shook his head. That was Stance 3 and Combo 2 for Stance 1. Stance 2 is the defensive-minded stance that relies on kicks and sweeps. Combo 1 is a double roundhouse kick, followed by a leg sweep and then a crane kick. Naruto huffed, thinking how ridiculous Jiraiya was in teaching him. However, Naruto wouldn't say this aloud. Naruto knew not to argue with success. The 6 Bunshin working on the Rasengan were getting very frustrated. Actually, only 4 of them were currently working on the Rasengan. The other two rage popped their balloons onto the ground and were now discussing the virtues of different ramen flavors and which should become the official flavor of Konoha. It was actually a very interesting conversation, attracting the attention of three of the Bunshin. One Bunshin, however, was fully focused on the task at hand. He had tried many different methods of popping the balloons with his chakra and he was currently on a method he thought was very successful. The balloon threatened to fly out of his hands as he spun the chakra in the balloon. It bulged out in the middle and seemed to have the best chance of making the damned balloon pop. He was concentrating so much he didn't notice the Bunshin walking up behind him, slapping him on the back. Surprised, the balloon fell out of his hand and popped on the floor. Growling, he turned back to the Bunshin who had disturbed his progress. "Hey, what do you think?" The Bunshin never got the chance to finish the question as the angry Bunshin decked him, popping him from existence. From across the field, the boss called out. "Boy, stop fighting over there and get back to work." The Bunshin didn't hear the argument that went on between Jiraiya and the boss. Suddenly, the boss called out. "Boys, dispel." Grumbling, the Bunshin listened to his boss. He thought he was so damn close to figuring it out. At least the boss would know what he knew. The Bunshin dispelled from existence, giving Naruto the first part of the first step of learning the Rasengan. Naruto was pleased by this information. Hinata Hyuga was extremely worried. Her and her teammates had last seen their sensei when she went off to confront the evil Uchiha brother and an infamous swordsman and hadn't heard anything all day. Beyond that, the duo were chasing Naruto of all people. She couldn't help but wonder why they were chasing Naruto. She knew he was strong, he had managed to defeat her cousin Neji and that scary Sand Genin, but why would it make him a target of bad men like that? She feared for Naruto's well-being, her only comfort for her objection of affection and idol was that he was with a Sannin, someone incredibly strong, looking for another Sannin. If anyone could take on people like them, it would be the two Sannin. It was only this thought that allowed her to focus on the self-practice her and her team had done on the training grounds that day, the first day of real training she had been allowed since she had been miraculously healed on the day of the sound attack. In the hospital, she had been thinking up a technique, one that would allow the Gyuukin to extend its reach. One of the longest-held problems of the Hyuga's feared style was that it demanded that your opponent be up close to you, and Hinata wanted to prove her strength by eliminating such a restriction. She figured if she did that, her father would become proud of her. However, since Neji's fight with Naruto, she had been thinking of a separate technique, one that was similar to the Kaiten, but less exhaustive of your chakra. It was nigh impossible for a female Hyuga to effectively use the Hyuga trademark defensive maneuver to its fullest capabilities due to their lesser reserves, but Hinata wanted to change that as well. She wanted to prove her strength to the two people that most influenced her father and Naruto. So her first day of failure had come, but she still had hope. Her father had once told her, when she was in his best graces, about how he learned from an old teammate, the Yondaime Hokage's wife of all people, that it took the Yondaime 3 years to create his legendary Rasengan. So one day of failure did not perturb her. So, she was now in her family's compound, focused on worrying about the well-being of her sensei. Eventually, a female member of the branch family told her to go to her father's study. Hinata was quick to reach it, having to avoid two people she recognized as members of the civilian council on the way who gave her an odd look. She reached the study, but was surprised to see her father waiting outside of it, and Anbu on his left. He spoke up. "Hinata, do you know where your sensei went today?" Hinata nodded solemnly. "Hi, she went to fight the traitor Uchiha and one of the S7 swordsmen of the mist." Hayashi gave a short nod, pleased as it would make the situation easier. During the course of this fight, Itachi Uchiha cast a rare Uchiha onto her, one that is known to torture the mind. She is currently hospitalized and only being allowed a few visitors at this time, you and your teammates included. Do you wish to visit your sensei now? Hinata's eyes went wide and were quick to nod, not trusting her voice as it would break terribly if she spoke. All her worries for Naruto had shifted to her loving, mother-like sensei, and if she would be alright. Hayashi looked over at his daughter. "As what you are wearing is acceptable, please follow the Anbu to your sensei's hospital room. I expect you back at the compound within 2 hours. Understand?" Hinata nodded again and managed to squeak out a loud whisper. "Hi." Hayashi turned to the Anbu. "I trust you to get her there safely." It was a statement more than a question and Hayashi returned to his study. The Anbu watched Hayashi enter the study and then looked back to Hinata. "Follow me, Hinata-sama." Hinata quickly did so, making good time at the hospital. However, they were the last to arrive. Already in the room were Asuma, Anko, Kiba, and Shino. Hinata was quick to rush to the bedside and look upon the seemingly sleeping form of her sensei. She turned to Asuma. "Asuma-sensei, is she alright?" Her face showed her hope and fear. Asuma shook his head slowly. "Whatever that damned Uchiha did to her, it is hurting her badly. She hasn't woken up and the doctors don't want her to." They said she will need quite a bit of sensitive healing to safely bring her out. They are saying they don't have anyone here capable of doing the job. Heck, I heard one person claim no one, but Tsunade could heal her. Surprising everyone, Hinata let out a sigh of relief. Seeing their puzzled looks, Hinata explained. I saw Naruto-kun this morning. He said that he was off with Jiraiya-sama to find her. She had learned the goal of the mission from the two gate guards and was especially happy now for that lucky coincidence. Asuma's eyes went wide but then looked back to Kurenai and let himself smile. He turned to Hinata. Well, that's good to hear. I just hope it doesn't take too long. Anko, still worried about her friend, couldn't give up the opportunity to tease Asuma. It's alright, lover boy. Kurenai is really tough, no way would she let something like an Uchiha take her down, especially with a. Asuma only nodded. You're right, Anko. She wouldn't. Anko was a little bit surprised. What, no denial, lover boy. Asuma shook his head. No, this made me see that life is too precious to just wait around for a sign. When she wakes up, I'm gonna ask her out. Anko smirked. Finally, you guys have been dancing around each other for months. I was gonna stick a viper on you if you didn't hurry up and ask her. Not focusing on the conversation of Asuma and Anko, Hinata went to speak with Shino and Kiba. Kiba was scratching the top of Akamaru's head. Man, I hope Kurenai-sensei is going to be alright. And I'm gonna kick the Itachi guy's ass for hurting her. No one messes with my pack and gets away with it. He boldly claimed, making Hinata feel a bit better. Though it was nothing like Naruto's, Kiba's confidence helped her too. Shino, however, rained on his parade. Kiba, as much as I agree with your sentiments, I do not believe it would be advantageous of you to attack Itachi Uchiha. One who is capable of slaying a clan of ninjas in silence in one night is well beyond your abilities at the moment. This made Kiba growl more. I don't care. That just means I have to train more to kick that clan-killing traitor ass. Hinata only nodded. Hi but I wonder why he was after Naruto-kun. Kiba stopped to think. Oh yeah, I was wondering about that earlier. Why would they want a baka like him? Hinata was quick to defend him however. Naruto-kun is no baka. She declared and immediately eeped. To her own boldness. Shino visibly raised an eyebrow but couldn't help but agree. True, Naruto is not the dead last he once was. His ability to defeat you and Niji, along with what I have heard from Shikamaru, his defeat of Gaara, his abilities are quite impressive. Kiba frowned. Come on, he beat me with a fart. A freaking fart. How is that impressive? Shino didn't respond. However, Hinata had a new goal. Those two men were after Naruto for a reason, something very important. Why else did Asuma and Kurenai jump so quickly to catch them when Sakura told them about their attempts toward Naruto? She needed to find out this reason. Offhandedly, she wondered if it had anything to do with why so many people didn't like Naruto in the village. She nodded to herself, making a promise to herself. She would find out why they were after Naruto. And Hinata Hyuga kept her promises. Sasuke was officially weirded out. After leaving the hospital room, he had expected to be able to go out and train. However, he had managed to run into the most annoying person he had ever met, even more annoying than Naruto, his new teammate Sai. How was he annoying? Sasuke could list the ways with ease. First off, his nickname. He had asked why he was called Quacky, and Sai told him that he had watched him and Sakura this morning. The guy creeped him out as well. Who watches someone without telling them? Elsewhere, Kiba was telling Hinata Kami bless you as she rubbed her nose and had decided on nicknames for them both. He tried to get him to call him by his name, but then he called him boss. He attempted to attack his teammate, but then he drew up these weird ink lions and they attacked him. He wasn't really sure what to do in such a situation and had toasted them with a fireball. Then, the guy started asking stupid questions, like what his favorite color was, saying he wanted to get to know him better. It was all annoying, and the spar he fought with the guy was worse. He kept bugging him throughout it with his comments, and that was what had allowed him to win. Those drawings, they were never ending. Sasuke didn't want to admit it to himself, but it was a strong ability. Then the guy just leaves. Says he will be at the meeting spot tomorrow. He didn't know what to think about that, as it had just been a waste of time in his eyes. He had no leads on this Danzo man. He determined he would just ask Kakashi-sensei about where he could find the man tomorrow. He just wanted to relax in his private bath, but there was a single obstacle. Sasuke-kun, are you alright? I haven't seen you all day. What happened? Sasuke huffed. I found my brother. He escaped me. I'm alright. He said, trying to ignore the girl who had actually followed him into his compound. Well, do you know why they are chasing Naruto? Sakura asked. Sasuke lied. No. There was no reason for Sakura to know the truth at the moment. Is everyone else alright? Sakura was simply bugging him at the moment. He stopped in the middle of the road and glared at her. Look, Sakura, leave me alone right now. Get it? go find someone else to bother right now." He then turned away from her and began to walk away. "I just wanted to know." He could hear the hurt in her voice, but he didn't turn around. He had an urge that he squashed, but he went to his living residence and began to wash up. Sakura walked dejectedly out of the Uchiha compound, unsure of what to do. She walked home, still worried about Naruto and everyone else. Sai returned to Lord Danzo and gave a report on Sasuke's abilities. His official review was that, while he needed emotional training, he would be a fine candidate for Root. Naruto yawned loudly. He was dressed in his sleeping clothes and had put on his walrus cap that he had remembered to pack. He was lying down on the bed, having gotten one of the two. He nearly apologized to Shin, who was on the floor, but decided against it. He never remembered being this tired, but then he remembered the 20 or so clones he had used for training and figured he had collected their exhaustion. He was going to enjoy every second of sleep he got tonight since he would have a full day tomorrow. He thought he had made a lot of progress today and figured he would have even more today. He had managed to learn it in one day and was on his way to figuring out a second one. He was getting shown a cool trick from Shin that he could use to make his weapons deadlier. And his taijutsu was going to be getting better. He just couldn't wait to use it to kick Hiro Sennin's ass. As such, his mind drifted to other topics. His mind wandered to Sakura and a question came to him. Could a Hokage date a genin? Or would he have to date someone closer to his level, like he would have to ask? Maybe, if he was Hokage, Sakura would finally date him. Then again, part of him knew that, if she was dating him only because he was Hokage, he really shouldn't want to date her. He wanted someone to date him. He just hoped Sakura would see that someday. His mind then wandered to Shikamaru and the upcoming war on Itagakure he was planning. He knew keeping such a giant idea from Jiraiya was a bad idea, but he didn't want to get it by accident before it could be done. And Jiraiya liked to get drunk and might spill the beans. So he just hoped Shikamaru, with his free pass to all information on the land, would have a good invasion plan for when he came back. His mind landed finally on his father. A day removed from the situation and he still wasn't sure what to think. Half of him wanted to hug his father, the other half wanted to deck him. Half of him was happy, half of him was mad. His father had cursed him, but did it to save the village. Naruto knew that his father did nothing wrong, but why did it hurt so much? Naruto had no answer as fell asleep. Day 2 of Hokage training began with a ridiculously early start, in Naruto's humble opinion, and an unfairly small breakfast. Naruto made his complaints known to his perverted sensei, but Jiraiya waved it off. "Look Gaki, consider it motivation. The better you do in our training today, the quicker you can get lunch, and the more I will be willing to contribute to pay for it. Understand?" Naruto looked at his sensei in a huff and gave a reluctant nod. "Fine, Hiro Sennin. So what is the plan for today? More Rasengan and Taijutsu training?" Jiraiya shook his head, but stopped himself. "Well, you are going to have Rasengan training every day pretty much until you learn it, but today I have other plans. Make me some clones and I will split them up." Naruto acquiesced to his sensei's wish and threw his hands together into a cross, calling out the name of his signature. Immediately 13 more Narutos appeared besides the original. Jiraiya looked over the gaggle of Narutos and began to separate them into groups. Jiraiya herded 7 of the clones into one group, reaching into the bag he had brought with him. He handed them each a water balloon, signaling that they were to be training to finish the first stage of the Rasengan. He left the bag there telling the clones, "If one of you accidentally pops your water balloons, replacements are here. If we manage to pop the balloons like how you want, then what should we do?" asked an especially ambitious clone. Jiraiya let out a small chuckle. "Gaki, if you can finish it today, take the day off. Even with all your helpers, I expect to take a week or so to do this, not a day and a half." With those words, the sage incited them to try and finish the first step that very day. Jiraiya moved on to the first trio of clones he had grouped together. "You 3 will be working with Shin to finish the Shunshin. He said it shouldn't take too long, but you need help with Shunshining vertically." The clones were alright with this and hoped that they would be able to get the same extra lessons that they had gotten the day before. Shin didn't mind either, as it helped him with the goals Lord Danzo had set for him. Jiraiya then mimicked the earlier version of his student, creating a shadow clone of himself. The double motion to the other trio of clones. "You 3 will be working with me on a very important skill that you have neglected." He told them, prompting the question by them about what it was. In response, all the Jiraiya clones did was give an evil grin that unsettled the clones. Finally, the original Naruto and Jiraiya were left. The sage pointed to his student before proclaiming, "And you, Gaki, will be coming with me to help you better understand information gathering and such. Get it? Got it? Good, now follow me." Without letting him get in a word, he dragged his student into town. The clone Jiraiya then looked at the rest of the Naruto clones and motioned them to get to work. The Rasengan clones quickly did and Shin led him off to do his teaching. Satisfied, the clone beckoned his students away to start their lesson of the day. The unnoticed beady eyes in the brush were uncertain of who to follow, but eventually decided to watch the Rasengan clones as they were learning the most potent technique. The originals made their way into town as Naruto was fairly confused. How can we gather information this early in the morning, Hiro-senin? The Toad Sage waved off his pupil's worries. It is never too early to get information. Actually, this is one of the best times of day if you know where to look. Naruto watched as he was led by his sensei through the town. As they walked, an important question came to mind. Wait, if I'm going to be in the chair all day, why do I need to learn this type of stuff? I mean, I understand getting stronger and stuff because I will have to protect the village and all, but won't I never really use this? Jiraiya let himself smile. Oh, how ignorant you are, Gaki. You will need to understand how to do things like this because you need to understand how things are done so you know what to expect from people. If we ignore it, you will have no appreciation of it, so you won't understand if a person did a fantastic job or a shitty one. And with arts as delicate as this, that could mean a safe village or a village under siege. Naruto understood it, sort of. Then you are saying I need to know it to be sure others are doing it right. Naruto summed up Jiraiya's explanation. He nodded. Right. Anything else you need explained? He was hoping there wasn't, but was wrong. However, it wasn't about info gathering. Just one thing. Why do you think this Tsunade chick will be a counselor for me? I mean, she isn't in the village, so she must retire or something. And she doesn't have to accept, so why will she? Well, first off, she ain't retired. Sensei let her run off about 11 years ago with her apprentice. Why? Naruto quickly interjected. Jiraiya gave him a look of annoyance. As I was about to explain, she had a lot of problems with the village. If she trusts you, she will explain. She would send me to Kingdom Come if I told you specifics. Anyway, my plan is simple. You tell her to come back, she says no, you say you will name her a missing nin, she calls your bluff, you make it official, she will say she is retired probably and can't be named a missing nin, you say you are calling her back to active service, you can do that by the way, probably by now her apprentice will break and say she will return and Tsunade will be close to breaking. Then, say it will only be until you are 18 and then she can retire. Throw in paying her gambling debts and she will say yes. Gambling debts? Jiraiya let himself snicker. Yup. Combine a gambling addiction with the worst luck for it in the world. Got herself the nickname the legendary sucker. Naruto let himself think about the plan and what he was told and frowned. That really doesn't sound too right or honorable. Jiraiya shrugged. Then go be a samurai. Look, honor is nice and all, but ninjas can't afford to get hung up on it. As a leader, you will have to do things you won't find honorable, but will need to do for the best of the village. In fact, you will probably do quite a few things you don't like. Sometimes you will send a team out knowing that they won't all come back, but they are the best suited to fulfill the mission. Like what Sensei did with the Hyuga clan that Niji kid explained to you about. He could have said no to Kumo, but that would have been dumb. One life, no matter how innocent, is worth the cost of stopping a war where hundreds will die. Naruto scowled. I don't like that one bit. Jiraiya couldn't help but agree. I don't either, but who knows. His mind wandered to what the old toad had prophesied. Maybe, someday, you can do something about it. He motioned Naruto to stop. Here we are, our first stop. Naruto looked at the building and at the area and raised an eyebrow. Why are we at some crummy diner? Jiraiya simply smirked. This crummy diner is where we will most likely find the best people for information at this hour. And that is? Naruto asked him, curious. Jiraiya gave him a big grin. Working girls, coming off their shifts. Then, with a bind, Jiraiya entered the diner. Naruto, who knew what he was talking about, just let out a long sigh. Peyton, do you have any idea where Kakashi-sensei is? Sakura gritted her teeth at the replacement Naruto. She didn't know how the heck it happened, but they managed to find someone more annoying and offensive than Naruto. She would much rather prefer Naruto and his questioning for a date. He at least had a valid reason to be so annoying. She wasn't sure why Sasuke hadn't fallen for her charms yet, but she was certain he was breaking. With Naruto on the brain, her mind wandered to yesterday's events. A full debriefing had gone down, and she was extremely worried for Naruto. She was curious as to why those types of people would be chazzing the knucklehead, but she could only hope he was alright. Despite everything, he was a friend, and Sakura didn't want a friend to get hurt, especially in the same vein as Kurenai-sensei did, who was in a coma from what she understood. No, Sai, we don't. We just wait here for him to show up. Sai cocked his eyebrow. Would it not be better to do training while he waits? Surprisingly, Sasuke shook his head. No, we don't know what he will have us do, so it is better to conserve energy. He logically explained to the near-emotionless boy. Sai paused for a moment to run that through his cranial filters and nodded. That does make a level of sense. Thank you, Quacky. Sasuke flinched and looked over to Sakura, happy to see she disliked this kid nearly as much as he did. He had never hoped so hard in his life that Kakashi would show up. And, by some Uchiha miracle, he appeared casually strolling up to them, an orange book having his full attention. He offhandedly waved to his pupils. "It is good to see you two are well rested after yesterday's excitement," he quipped, his eyes never leaving the page. "And you must be Naruto's replacement. If I remember correctly, your name is..." Sai. Sai nodded. "Correct, sensei." He closed his book for the moment. "Alright, Sai. Well, if we are going to be a team for the time being, I think it would be a good time for a bonding and teamwork exercise." Placing his book away, he replaced it in his hand with a pair of bells. Sai looked at his teammates oddly as they groaned. "I do not get it. Am I missing something?" The only indication of Kakashi's smile was his exposed eye. "What we are about to do has been handed down the generations, from my sensei, from his sensei, from his sensei and from his sensei. The bell test. The three of you are going to be working together and trying to take the bells from me. Normally, all you would have to do is figure out that you have to work together, but as those two already know this, you must actually take the bells from me this time." He attached the bells to his belt and pulled out a timer. "As it is about 10:30, I will give you until 1 to succeed." "Do we get a reward for succeeding, sensei?" Sai asked, remembering the tests Danzo gave, where one would be rewarded a scroll meant to advance one's abilities. "Well, you should be rewarded enough by showing you can work with your teammates." Glares by Sasuke and Sakura went unnoticed. "But I will also add in the reward of lunch for me." A small smile from Sakura and a faint smirk from Sasuke were dashed by Kakashi's next words. "Failure, however, means no lunch and the Tora mission. Now, begin." The trio of genin vanished within moments, giving Kakashi an opportunity to take out his book and start reading again. The three genin ended up gathered behind the tree line. Sai was the first to speak. "So, Quacky, Kaiten, what would you like to do to defeat Sensei?" Sakura couldn't help but think that she could afford to skip a meal. The conference of the clones was going on, attempting to determine the best way to complete the first stage of the Rasengan. "Maybe we need to make spikes without chakra," one clone said. "You know, to pop the balloon. What about we try spinning it north to south instead of east to west?" Another guessed. "How about going west to east?" a third commented. The self-designated top clone calmed them down. "Fine, how about we each try our own way of doing things? If one of these things works, then the better for the boss it is." 6 Bunshin split up, each with their own method of popping. The 7th, a more contemplative one, had a different thought. He knew the Rasengan was supposed to be like a perfect circle, a ball in his hand, much like the water balloon in his hand at the moment. He also remembered that when the balloon had come popping the closest to popping the other day, it looked almost flat. He was slightly confused by this discrepancy and attempted to solve it with Naruto logic. "So, we have to pop the balloon, but for us to complete it, it will end up being a ball. But why does it have to be a ball shape? Why not a cyclone? It could be really strong like that. But maybe Yondaime tried that and it didn't work. Iro Sennin probably would have tried too and decided a ball was the best way to hit somebody. I guess it makes sense. I mean, wind can be strong, but it can't send you 50 feet like something solid like a really strong punch can. Okay, so it will be in a ball. I guess we have to pop the balloon to show how strong it is. I mean, if I can't pop a balloon, how could it cut down a tree so quickly? But we need it to be in a ball. And if they are all trying to pop the balloon and boss gets our memories, then I should try something different. I should try to make it into a ball. But how can I do that with a water balloon? Well, maybe. So when I try to put a lot of chakra into it, the balloon kinda bulges, so what if I put a lot of chakra into it but try to make it not bulge? Yeah, that's what I'll do." With his train of thought complete and mission set, the oddball 7th clone unknowingly began the 3rd step of Rasengan training. If Jiraiya knew he had skipped a step, he would have both been happy for his thinking and mad at his slight disobeying of orders. The Jiraiya Bunshin, on the other hand, was fun. Currently, the trio of Narutos he had under his disposal were attempting to break out of the he had set on them. All reports were that he stunk with the art, so Jiraiya had decided a crash course on the subject was needed. At the moment, each Naruto was dealing with a different type of all of the C-rank variety. Naruto 8 was smelling a horrible stench that he couldn't shake no matter what. It was a combination of spoiled milk, rotten ramen, and the excessive perfume he wore sometimes. He wanted to gag. Naruto B was hearing moans and groans that were scaring the hell out of him. He was certain that it was ghosts, but he couldn't see him. That was the point of ghosts, though. He was ready to try and fight them off. Naruto C had the worst fate. He kept seeing random men walking from one end to the other end of the field. They never spoke to him or acknowledged him, but what they did was much worse. They had forgotten their clothes. All of them were under the guise of weight training, each wearing 5-pound weights on their arms and legs. They would have little actual effect on Naruto, the original, but he just needed some exercise that would distract them from the real goal. Naruto C was the first to go fetal. He tried to block out the images, but he simply saw them go through his head again and again. He had no idea why there were so many naked men just walking across the field. He had seen a few multiple times, like a red-headed Neji lookalike and a fat guy sensei, and was recognizing more. A male version of Hinata, a midget Iruka. In fact, Naruto C began to question why they were familiar faces and why they seemed to be looping. The word looping brought him back to the Chunin exams and what the ninjas from AIM had done to them. Naruto C forced himself to remember how Iruka-sensei had taught him to break Jinjutsus. Then, putting his hands into the proper seal, he pumped a lot of chakra into them and shouted, "Release." But nothing happened. Suddenly, he heard Jiraiya talking. "So you finally figured it out. Took you long enough. Wonder what you saw. And, by the way, you have to repress and stop your chakra flow before you do the burst." Naruto C growled. "Stick a kunai where the sun doesn't shine, Iro Senin." He proceeded to attempt to do what Jiraiya had suggested, taking 2 tries to finally release them. About the same time, Naruto A realized it was and the process repeated itself. A few minutes later, Naruto B caught on. Finally, all 3 clones had escaped. The 3 clones had looked at one another and, with a nod, attempted to jump the Jiraiya clone. However, a smoke bomb was deployed and the 3 clones found themselves under a new scenario. A was seeing naked girls this time, B was smelling ramen, and C was listening to somebody that sounded suspiciously like Jiraiya yodeling. The Jiraiya Bunshin was happy to note it took a third of the time it took the first try for them to break them and without any advice from him. After a second smoke bomb, Jiraiya casted B-rank Jinjutsus on the clone, seeing how they would handle those. "Well, I believe I can say, Naruto-san, that you have officially mastered Shunshin no Jutsu." Elsewhere, Shin spoke to the 2, an accident destroyed one of the clones, he missed the branch he was trying to Shunshin on and fell, his head slamming into the ground. The real Naruto hated that feeling. The 2 remaining clones smiled. "Really, that is so awesome." The first clone said. "I mastered that like a boss, believe it." The other spoke. Shin merely nodded his head in agreement. Or one could say, like a Hokage. The clones froze for a moment and let out a small snicker. "That was kinda funny." "Good one, Shin-sensei." Shin didn't realize he had made a joke, so he simply thanked the clone for the compliment. "Now, I believe it is time for you to dispel." The clones immediately began to whine. "Do we have to? We wanted to learn more about those chakra strings or threads or whatever you showed us yesterday." "You mean the chakra threads? I still do not understand why you wish to learn them, you have no logical abilities that will complement them. I only began to show them to you yesterday because I did not want to disappoint you, Naruto-san." Shin calmly explained. The clone began to whine. "But it is really cool. It's like having wire, but stronger and you don't have to carry it. And I can use it for traps and stuff. And I will figure out other ways to use it. Awesome ways to use it. So show me, please." Shin looked at the clone who had spoken and the other clone who had joined in on the pleading. He let himself frown slightly, then nodded. "Alright then. I gave you an explanation of them yesterday and showed how to create them. Today's task will be creating them. I warn you, however, it will not be a simple task. Understand?" The clones nodded and got to work. Remembering what they had been told, they began the meticulous process of sending chakra to their fingertips, narrowing it to the size of wire, and slowly excrete them into the outside world. It was hard work, but they figured the boss would love it. The boss was not loving the situation he was in. It was around noon, and Jiraiya had them stop at a takoyaki stand for lunch. Naruto had never been a giant fan of the fish-shaped pastry, so he begrudgingly accepted the food, this one filled with red bean paste. "So when are we going to get down to the real stuff? All we've done is talk to girls that you have hit on and have rejected you." Jiraiya let out a sigh. "Gaki, you will learn in time that it is the real stuff that I was doing. You only see it as me flirting, which is why it works. Everyone knows I am a super pervert, so no one would expect me to use it as an opportunity to gather information." Naruto just rolled his eyes. He then overheard a voice call out. "Jiraiya-sama." He and Jiraiya turned to see a young man, no older than 19, running towards the author, an orange book in hand. Naruto happened to notice it was not the same one Kakashi always carried around, but still looks similar. Standing in front of the Toad Sage, he bowed. "It is an honor to meet you. You are my favorite author and have taught me much. Please, would you sign my book?" he asked, holding out the book with a pen. Jiraiya let out a smirk. "Well, anything for a good fan of my literature." He took the book from the man's hands and began to sign. The man smiled. I was so inspired by your character Tsukato and how she secretly yearned for her best friend Jiraiya. And, I must wonder, is it true that it was written by what happened between you and your teammate, Tsunade? Jiraiya let out a chuckle. Oh, how I wish it was, my loyal little fan. I would have loved to have tasted a beauty such as her once in my life, but I cannot find her for the life of me. The man let out a frown. If you had been here a week earlier, you would have had the chance. My father owns the Confitoin Comfort Inn nearby and hosted a card tournament last weekend. He told me how she tried her hand in it and lost rather early. Her assistant paid off her debts before she left. Alas, I wish I could have seen a beauty as herself, even though she has left her youth. Jiraiya snickered. Kid, let me tell you a secret. No matter the age of the women, there will be youth to find under the sheets, if you know what I mean. The man only grinned and nodded. Thank you, Jiraiya-sama. I must leave, as I must return to work, but I hope you find your lovely Tsukato. He bowed and left the two in the middle of the street. Jiraiya turned to his apprentice. Well, I guess our next stop is that hotel. From there, we can find who played in it, who talked to her, and hopefully find out where she was going next. Don't fall behind, Gaki. Naruto didn't really want to respond to that stupid perverted luck, anyhow. This meeting seems ridiculous, Hiashi. We already must accept him. Yes, but will you support his policies as he announces them, or will you hold them in contempt? Hayashi challenged the civilian councilman. The civilian did not say anything, but the other did. So what if we do? We have the right to oppose them. Hayashi simply nodded. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. However, if you come on board with my plan, then you will have little need for disagreeing. I believe you are putting too much weight on how much sway you will gain, Hiashi. The original civilian argued. Am I? How much sway did yours hold over you, how long did it last? And you overlook the fact that the Uzumaki-sama is an orphan, among all else. He will thank me for this and be easy to bend. Why do you lack the trust of Danzo, Hiashi? The second civilian asked. Hiashi paused and thought to himself why he did not like him so. It was not like he had ever offended the Hyuga clan and had in fact opposed the Kumo offer of his sacrifice to end the hostilities between the two nations. However, Hayashi had to admit his motives always made him wary. He was a war hawk, no doubt about it. He had always supported violence and destruction as his methods of protecting Konoha. While Hayashi did believe that violence could solve a problem, it was his carte blanche use of it that left him in poor taste with the Hyuga clan leader. He is a kinjutsu, causing destruction to solve all his problems. I believe that sort of touch to leadership is a bad concept. What a leader must be, beyond all things, is flexible. Yes, a kinjutsu is occasionally needed, but so is espionage and alliances. My leadership skills that will be given to Uzumaki-sama are for his benefit and the title's benefit and thus Konoha's benefit. I hope you can see that. And why will he accept your proposal in the first place? He has no good reason either. At this, Hiashi couldn't help but feel slightly ashamed. He knew the tactic was somewhat unethical and was going against the new leaf he was trying to turn, but it had to be done. Because I will announce who the clan heiress will be. Once he learns all the details, he will accept. Elsewhere, Hinata was trying to listen in on the conversations of random shinobi of the village and try to hear what they were saying. The fact that Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hoshigaki had been after Naruto had become the buzz, so she hid in a bush and behind a building to hear anything that would explain the situation. It was after the lunch hour, as she had gone to a morning practice with her team under the guidance of Kiba's older sister, Hana, so she had little available news to listen to. Finally, a conversation had caught her ears. Do you think they were after him at? No way, why would that want that? No, but we both know how strong that demon is. If he could harness it and be turned to be evil like them too, then he would be a giant threat. Sandaime did tell us back then that he would be able to use it. So you really think they were after him for that? The person shrugged. It's my best guess as to why they were chasing him. Can you think of any reason why guys like Itachi would want him? Well, he did beat the Hyuga kid and he was said to be a prodigy, a lock-on 4. He should have won that fight, but from what I felt, I think he used the demon chakra. Hey, Hinata, why are you behind that bush? Hinata jumped to attention, surprised to see Hana and Yuzuka crouching next to her. Hana-sensei. Hinata immediately called out. She waved her off. Don't call me that, I was just helping you guys out today. So, why were you listening in on their conversation? Hinata blushed and didn't say anything. However, she noticed a glaring detail. Oh no, where are the Himari triplets? Hana shrugged. Taking a nap. I swear, they can be the laziest dog sometimes. But when I want to rest or work. More hyperactive than the Uzumaki kid Kiba used to hang out with. Then again, wasn't that what they were talking about? Him, right? Hinata nodded, embarrassed that she had been caught. Hana simply smirked. Not surprising, considering what happened yesterday. I'm one of the few Inyazuka clan members not out on a hunting mission for those two, and that is because I have vet duties in case one of our ninken gets hurt. Hinata was not surprised by this information, as Kiba had explained it to her earlier. However, she was bold for a moment and asked, do you know what they meant by demon chakra? Hana stopped and paused. No clue. I think mom would know, but she wouldn't tell me. Look, Kiba told me all about your little crush on Naruto. Hinata wanted to bury her head in some sand. Yes, she did like Naruto, she had realized this in the aftermath of her fight with Neji, but that didn't mean she wanted other people to know yet. And all I know is this. The kid has something with him that most adults don't like. I have a few theories, but nothing I want to make a guess with. I bet you are wondering what that is, aren't you? Hinata quietly nodded. Hi. I was wondering why people like that would want Naruto. I thought they could be connected. Hana simply nodded. That does fit one theory, which would explain a few things. But I really doubt it's true. I hope you find your answer, hopefully not behind a bush, understand? Hinata nodded. See you around, Hinata. A day, Hana-san. Hinata left the spot on her way home. She made a quick detour to help Team 7 with the Tora mission. The cat actually liked her and wasn't sure what to think of Sai. Of course, the nickname Mumbles was a weird one as well. Hana was thinking to herself as she departed from Hinata's company, the theory wrapping around her head. Naruto was the container for the Kyuubi. It had become a theory after she found out about the Ichibi and the Kazukija's son, but she didn't think it could be true. Though she wondered about the reaction of her brother and Naruto's admirer if that were the case. Kisame was getting bored. And a bored Kisame is never a good thing. I spy with my little eye something brown. Can you guess what Itachi-san is? Itachi sighed. Squirrel, 3 trees ahead, 1 tree left, 7th major branch, right side. Kisame snapped his fingers. You got it right. Your turn. Itachi just closed his eyes. How long will you act like this? Kisame let go of the act and smirked. Well, you told me to act less bloodthirsty, and I am. Isn't that what you want? Itachi just slowly rubbed the bridge of his nose. We are not going to mount a second assault on Konoha, no matter how much you beg. We still have another day of reconnaissance before I go to stage 2 of my plan. Also, if my belief in our leader is correct, he will have a Zetsu helping us. I believe that we will soon be getting ready to contact us to give us information. Kisame let out a sigh of relief. Finally, I was getting annoyed that I haven't killed someone in a while. So, what is this stage 2 of yours? I will enter as an Anbu and discover the whereabouts of Naruto that way. Kisame only grunted. Are you sure we can't do a second assault? Itachi was starting to get annoyed by his teammate. He was fine most of the time, but when he got antsy like that, it was a bother to deal with. Yes, Kisame, we can't. Alright then. Your turn to play I Spy, Itachi-san. He delved back into the role he had been playing earlier. Itachi merely closed his eyes again. He hated how his hatred of childness was being used against him. The white Zetsu Bunshin that had been tailing the group featuring Naruto was in his preparations for leaving and heading to find Itachi and Kisame, ready to give them an update on where they were staying. He was simply waiting to find out about his progress during the day and then he would be on his way. He watched as Shin, the Jiraiya clone, the original Jiraiya, and a gaggle of Narutos converged onto the field. The real Jiraiya spoke. He directed his attention to the Rasengan clones. So, were you able to pop the balloon? The clone who had named himself leader spoke. No. We tried various methods, but none of them worked. Jiraiya just shrugged. Trying different things is a good route to go. Keep experimenting along that thought process and you should learn how to do the Rasengan in no time. Now, Bunshin, report. His other self smiled. They did well in training and advanced a considerable portion in their talents of handling. The original Naruto widened his eyes. Jinjutsu? That is what you had them do, Iro-senin. You really should stop calling me that, and yes. Knowing how to recognize and disperse is a key shinobi skill. Shin, report on the progress of the Shunshin. I'm assuming there were no more accidents like the first one. Shin nodded. Yes, Naruto-san has mastered the Shunshin. Jiraiya simply nodded. Excellent. Now, clones of the world, disperse. But that odd statement, all of the clones disappeared and their knowledge hit their users. Giving him a moment to process the information for a dozen clones, Jiraiya turned to Naruto. Now, show me your mastery of the Shunshin. With a nod, Naruto began a succession of Shunshins, meant to show he could go whichever way. The Zetsu clone even jumped when he Shunshined on a branch directly over his hiding location, but he had no worries. His was strong enough too. Oh, so you wanted me to see if I could recognize that it is on something else. Iro-senin, your clone went over that as well. Release. But that powerful statement, Zetsu realized that his secure, out-of-the-way hiding spot had not been secure enough as 3 sets of shinobi's eyes were glued onto him. He attempted to use the Kajero technique to escape, mad at himself for not having been using it the entire time. He had gotten lax and had paid the price. However, he never had the chance to fully use the technique as a kunai buried itself in between his eyes, his death coming instantly. "Shin, what are you doing? I was going to capture him alive." Jiraiya yelled at the student. Naruto had jumped down from his branch, surprised at how quickly the person had died. He began to try to remove him from the ground, but found it impossible. "Oi, I can't move him for some reason." Jiraiya let out a growl as he went to inspect the shinobi. He was only half a person, in an odd way, as it seemed the right side of his body was just filler for what was supposed to be there. However, he caught on to two important facts. That this looked quite like a shinobi he had been warned of, a man called Zetsu. No one knew of his origins, and his abilities were whispers, but this integration with his natural surroundings was one of them. The second was the black robe with red clouds he wore. "Naruto, we are leaving now. Get your possessions and follow me." "What is it? Who is he?" Jiraiya let out a sigh. "If I am correct, he is part of a group called Akatsuki, which once had Orochimaru as among its members and currently has Itachi Uchiha and the legendary puppeteer Sasori of the Red Sands as his members. I have speculated that they were interested in the tailed beasts, but was not sure. However, this spy almost certainly proves it. Now, gather your things, Naruto, Shin, and let's go." Naruto had many questions, but he saw how serious Jiraiya was at the moment. Deciding on waiting on asking more questions about this group, he quickly went back to the hotel, gathered their things, and gathered with Jiraiya and Shin at the edge of the forest. "There is a village, a few hours out of the way from here through the trees, that we will be heading to next. This village is compromised and we need to get out before any more of him shows up. Understand?" Naruto was worried, but nodded his head. "Sure, what is the name of the village we are going to?" Jiraiya motioned for them to start jumping, and they followed. "The village is called Areoicho. Rebirth Town." "Wait, I thought we were going to that village you were talking about, what was it called again?" Naruto began to complain about how they were sleeping on the ground almost 2 miles away from the village Jiraiya had mentioned. "Well, we already wasted the money for the night in that hotel room that we had to run from, so I don't want to pay for another room. Plus, there isn't enough in the town for me to do my research, so I can wait until morning." Jiraiya revealed the real purpose of their dirt beds. "And like I said before, this town is called Areoicho. Kinda superstitious, but a nice joint overall." Shin nodded in the assessment. "My studies of various local villages in the Land of Fire reveal similar information. However, there might be." Jiraiya put a finger up to his mouth, motioning him to stay silent on whatever he was going to say. Shin quickly finished his statement, a chance that it is modernized further. Naruto ignored the statement, not really sure how one would go about modernizing, but figuring he would have to ask later about it. "Fine, whatever then. Wake me up when you have to wake me up." Naruto let out a yawn as he realized how tired he was between training and this march. He made his way to a tree that had a natural chair growing from its roots and settled in, nodding off quickly. Jiraiya rolled his eyes. He should know better by now. "Guess we got only 2 shifts tonight. You first watch, kid, Sage needs some shut-eye." He directed to Shin who nodded. Jiraiya found a scroll and released a seal that contained a nice-sized tent that could fit 4. Gaki could have waited a minute and got some real luxury. He should have known I had a backup plan. He quickly entered the tent to get some sleep before his shift to keep watch and make sure the kid, the Hokage, stayed safe. Shin looked over to the tent and towards Naruto. Despite being only a day into the mission, Naruto was already causing him to question bits of Danzo's training. He didn't particularly like this feeling, as it made him conflicted. With that, he decided to take a look at the perimeter of their camping grounds. And if he happened to gather more info on top of what he had already heard, better for all 3 of them. The next morning Naruto woke up when the sun managed to break through the tree line and a beam of direct sunlight right into his eyes. His eyes shot open, yawning at the same time. That was actually a pretty good sleep. "Hey, Jiraiya-sensei, Shin-san, why didn't you wake me up earlier? I want to train." The fuzziness one sees when they first wake up finally left Naruto as he looked around for his sensei or his bodyguard friend. They were nowhere to be seen, along with their bags. On his bag, there was a short note. Grabbing it, he read what it said. "Sorry kid, but we'll be back later. Go into town and don't do anything stupid." Naruto rolled his eyes. "Whatever, I should have expected this. He is probably looking for something for his research. I thought he was going to be serious and train me." Naruto stood up and stretched, arching his back and loosening up his shoulders. He quickly put on his bag and did a few hop steps before beginning his march into the way he thought town was. "I wish I had a water balloon." In the trees, Shin and Jiraiya hid themselves. "Jiraiya-sama, do you believe this is a good idea? I took the liberty to." "I know, kid. So did I. This is a test for him. I just hope it doesn't end too poorly." Luckily, Naruto was heading the proper way into town and was there in about 30 minutes, as he was only walking. He circled around the edge of the town, not wanting to pop up in someone's backyard, and found a suitable road to enter on. As he marched in, he was surprised by all of the activity that was occurring in this village at what seemed to be the middle of the morning. Which is to say, it was almost a ghost town. And the people who were out didn't help the matter. They looked forward, not daring to make eye contact with him, and walked quickly from wherever they were coming to wherever they were going. It gave Naruto a similar feeling to the one he got when he walked through Tezuna's village. They were not acting the same, but the vibe of being oppressed and hopeless was almost spot on. Naruto did not like it for 1 minute. He tried to go to 2 different markets to look for some fruit or something for him to eat, but they were poorly stocked and the workers there were on edge around him. Naruto was almost certain that something was happening with this village and that he needed to help them. Then, without warning, everyone went into overdrive. They began to, not run, but hurry to wherever they needed to go. He looked around for what was causing this mess whenever he saw a person that was out of place in that environment. He gave off a completely different vibe than anything Naruto had ever felt. It had the faintest hints of Geto, of Orochimaru, but it wasn't like that. He felt like that person was absorbing the fear he seemed to be causing with delight, that it was the fear itself he craved and not some goal specific that caused fear as a side effect. The man stood about 6 feet tall and looked in decent shape, but he couldn't tell for sure by what the man was wearing. He wore a thin white coat that had a short collar, exposing the neck of the man and a hem that ended around his shins. Black pants were beneath the coat, but he appeared to be shirtless by all observation. His red sandals, an odd color, completed his clothing outlook. Except, the white coat was not a pure white coat. It was decorated with red splashes all around him. There was no uniformity to how these splashes were displayed, and the color reminded him of the dried blood he would sometimes have to wash out of his jumpsuit. But there was no way it would be blood. The face only further instigated this line of thinking. He wore a short black buzz-cut hairstyle, had a narrow nose and thin lips, but it was his eyes that drew Naruto's attention. They seemed to compensate for the narrowness of the rest of his face, as they were incredibly wide and off-kilter. They were a deep blue that darted around his face, taking in the fear his presence commanded. The only word Naruto had to describe them was that they looked crazy, like the eyes of an insane person. His coat and eyes needed attention, but his weapon he carried demanded it. It was unlike anything Naruto had really seen before. He could tell it was a scythe by the basic design of it, but it was so much more. Every 1 inch of the weapon was the darkest of black and seemed to shine. There were 3 blades in the direction of the scythe, each having in length as they went down the pole. On the end of the pole there was a deadly-looking spike, and opposite of the blades a row of nails extended 4 inches from the pole, each nail's point almost impossibly sharp-looking. It was beyond obvious to Naruto that this man was terrorizing the town with his weapon, but he couldn't see a headband anywhere on his body, leading him to believe it was just a dangerous civilian. A crazy civilian with a very nasty weapon, but a person Naruto could dispatch with relative ease with his shadow clone hordes. Swarm the guy, take away his weapon, knock him out, and tie him up so the civilians could do what they saw fit to the guy. Easy as instant ramen, right? Come on, can't a guy get a little breakfast? All I want is some eggs, some fish, hell, some tasty bread. I know you guys can make it. The man loudly complained in a loud and slightly annoying voice. The people tried to ignore him as long as they could without drawing his attention, but it inevitably failed. His eyes focused on one of the people hurrying by him, carrying a small thing of groceries. You there, the skinny ginger with the groceries, stop. The man froze in place, Naruto seeing his look of terror. He decided he had seen enough and began his march towards him. Now, I know you heard me asking for breakfast, yet you have the discretion to keep walking when you have a bag full of delicious-smelling food. How dare you treat your priest like that? He smiled sinisterly and snaked his hand into the groceries. Which was suddenly stopped by a hand grabbing his wrist. He looked up to see a boy with whiskers and orange clothing wearing a ninja headband. It is rude to take things from people who aren't offering. Naruto told him sternly, slowly pulling the hand out of the bag. The man fell over, scooting away, not daring to run. The man smiled. I see you are not from around here, shinobi. I am the priest Vegeta and I rule this village. Now I ask you to move on to wherever you are supposed to be. Vegeta told him in a sickly sweet tone. He was not a dumb man and did not want to have to get involved with shinobi unless he was given a good reason to. You look like you bully this village, if anything, Vegeta-san. You should know better if you really are a man of faith than to prey on the weak. Naruto responded, his grip tightening. Vegeta smiled. Ah, but you do not know my faith, for I worship the great god Jashin, who gives great gifts to his followers and punishes the weak. Sounds like a real asshole, this Jashin guy. Naruto crudely remarked. Finally, Vegeta forced Naruto to break his grip. Repent, for you have insulted the great god Jashin, or I must do my duty as a loyal lamb and give you salvation. The tone clearly implied it was a great threat, but Naruto was not worried. However, the man he had saved was. The ginger-haired man suddenly was grabbing his leg. Please boy, you do not understand. Repent your sins, save yourself. Priest Vegeta, you can have my groceries, all of them if you want. But please forgive the boy. He bowed to pray. Not mercy but a steadied hand. Naruto was not having any of that. No, that is bullshit. You bought those groceries, so you shouldn't let some asshole take them from you. Just because he has a weapon doesn't mean you can fight back. Vegeta grinned. Oh, boy, so you do not want to repent to the Lord Jashin. Then, I must make sacrifices to right this wrong. Naruto's eyes noted one specific word. Sacrifice. Vegeta nodded. Yes, boy. A great sacrifice must be made to those who dare to take Jashin's name in vain. A greater sacrifice than normal. The ginger-haired man's eyes widened and his face paled. Please repent. He turned to Naruto. For the love of Kami, please repent. Naruto's eyes went between the man and Vegeta. Finally, he focused his eyes on Vegeta. It is obvious to me that you have been terrorizing these people for way too long. So, I swear this will be the last day you ever have power over these people or any person ever again. Naruto backed off preparing for a fight. Vegeta suddenly flashed a smile at the look in Naruto's eyes. Boy, what is your name? My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto continued his stare down on the man. Well then, Naruto Uzumaki, I will be seeing you soon. Feel free to come to my church anytime today and try to back up your promises. With that, Vegeta turned around and began to march away. Hey, I haven't kicked your ass yet. Naruto yelled to his retreating form and he made a move towards him but was stopped by the ginger-haired man. Don't. You have no idea what you are up against. Just leave and save yourself. Naruto looked down at the man. You don't have to worry about me, I'm a powerful shinobi. No priest could beat me. The man shook his head. You just don't understand. Naruto looked into his eyes and saw the utter fear in them. His senses were telling him there were things he needed to know from this man, things that he could use to beat this Vegeta man. Then educate me. About 10 minutes later, he found himself in the home with a man who introduced himself as Kazama and to his wife whom he lived with, Hinoko. She was a nice person and was grateful, but Naruto did for her husband, but he could just tell that she was also worried. For him, for her husband, for herself, he didn't know. She had quickly doled out the breakfast leftovers they had of rice and miso soup to Naruto as Kazama got himself steady from his encounter with Vegeta. As Naruto enjoyed the breakfast, he waited for Kazama to get to the subject. Kazama finally sat across from the table to Naruto, Hinoko standing nearby. Priest Vegeta showed up about 4 months ago as just your average traveler. We thought he might be a shinobi, so we gave him his distance. No offense, Uzumaki-san, but we have always been cautious about shinobi types. The stories we hear don't usually make them sound as nice as you. But giving him his distance didn't let us see how he took over the abandoned mansion as his cathedral. Then he began going around town, trying to convince people to go to his sermons about his god, Jashin. We all ignored him and figured it was a scam. Until one day, he had enough with our attitudes. So, he took the mayor of our town, who happened to be passing by him about the 3rd day he was looking for converts, and cut him with his scythe on that bed of nails and licked it clean. Well, we all surrounded him and were going to arrest him, but then he started to cut himself with his scythe and drew a circle and an upside-down triangle in his own blood. After that he changed. Changed how? Naruto was enticed by this story, making sure to take notes on how he would approach this Vegeta character. He became black, pure black, with white symbols on his body. Then he prayed to Jashin, asking him if he would accept this humble sacrifice. We told him to get out of the circle and come quietly, but that is when he stabbed himself, through the heart. The heart? How is he alive? Did he use it? Naruto quickly asked, not believing Kazama's story. He shook his head. No, he truly stabbed himself in the heart. Now, we were all stunned at what he had done. And then the mayor began to bleed, out of his mouth and in his chest. We had no idea what had caused it, but in a few moments, he slumped over dead. We were all terrified and tried to figure out what to do. Then we heard laughing, and Priest Vegeta explained what was going on. Worshipping Jashin gave one access to secret techniques that let his followers do wonderful things. 2 of those things were immortality and becoming human voodoo dolls. Immortality? How is that even possible? Naruto was horrified by the story but was interested in the immortality business. Kazama shivered. I do not want to know how, but it must have been truly evil to allow for such an inhuman feat. Because of that, he could turn himself into a voodoo doll after consuming someone's blood and do things that would kill them and let him live. In the 4 months since that day, he had killed at least a dozen people. I think he wants to kill more of us, but he loves the fear he inspires. Then why do you stay? Naruto didn't understand why a civilian would stay in such fear. Or try to hire shinobi. We did try to leave, try to go to Konoha. He quickly exclaimed. But after his display, he got a few followers and spies that would rat on us if we try to leave, if we try to send word. And I know he won't let you leave alive, so you need to escape now. You stopping him is pointless, so leave while you can. Naruto looked down. Are you sure he is immortal, that it isn't some trick? Kazama nodded. Yes, we are sure. 2 months ago, a man got the jump and split his head into two with an axe. Without thinking, Priest Vegeta killed the man and stayed out of sight for a few days. When he came back out, it looked like he had never been hurt. He cannot be stopped. Forget about us, save yourself Uzumaki-san. Naruto began to shake his head. Impossible. I could never let a monster like that continue his reign of terror. He grabbed his headband from his forehead. I swear on my loyalty to Konohagakure I will stop this Vegeta and let Areoicho live on in peace. But how would you stop him? Hinoko asked from her spot. Naruto tied his headband back into place. Don't worry, I have a plan. Now tell me, how do I get to his cathedral? His eyes punctuated the seriousness in his voice. For the first time in months, Kazama and Hinoko were able to see something they had abandoned. They could see hope. In fairness to Itachi and Kisame, they did not kill the Anbu behind the black boar mask. They merely put him to sleep for the next few days. That way, Itachi's masquerade under the mask would be kept secret. Kisame didn't think it mattered a whole lot, but Itachi had to explain that exposing a weakness a village has is not always in the enemy's interest, especially if it could be exploited multiple times over in the future. Kisame got it, but still thought killing the guy would be better. Honestly, Itachi wondered if he could just send Kisame on a wild goose chase once in a while, just for the peace his own logic brought him. He quietly patrolled the areas of Konoha, randomly passing by a trio of young shinobi, most likely genin, when he recognized two of them. His brother and the pink-haired girl he was with the other day. He continued on with his patrol, but ducked out of sight for a moment to create a cage bunchen that would follow them. He would continue on to loop by the tower, near the Nara estates, and back into the forest. He had mapped the Sanbu's route yesterday, which is why he felt confident in going about it today. The bunchen looked as if he was patrolling the area around the trio, but was really enhancing his hearing with his chakra to catch their conversation. I truly do not understand your point, Quacky-san. Is it not recommended giving one another nicknames in order to establish bonds? Sasuke rolled his eyes. Sai-san, do not call me Quacky again, or I will hurt you. That is most unlikely. Sai brazenly responded. Sakura saw the look on Sasuke's face and decided to break the two up. Sai-san, do not test Sasuke-kun. I don't want either of you getting into fights. And in regards to giving one another nicknames, that only occurs when there is a certain level of friendship between two people where nicknames develop naturally. Kind of like between Naruto-kun and Sasuke-kun. They do not get along well, but they have this odd bond I can't understand that makes the insults they call each other, Dobe and team seem more friendly than insulting. Sakura failed to add that she still wanted to punch Naruto every time he called Sasuke team, but she had explained her point thoroughly. Sasuke failed to comment on the point, but agreed with the assessment. One of the thoughts that went through his head over the last few days was Naruto's comment about being his friend and how he thought of Naruto as a friend, if not his best friend. It was a bit pitiful that Naruto became his best friend, but he was now Hokage, so he couldn't say much. He achieved his goal in life a lot quicker than he had and was getting training from a Sannin. He still needed to find Danzo to help with his training. I see. Nicknames are only used once a person's relationship with another has naturally created one. Thank you. Sai paused for a moment, Sakura-chan, for that information. I hope we become close enough to have nicknames for each other by the time Naruto-sama comes back. Why do you always call Naruto-kun Sama? Sakura asked, but the Itachi bunchen was now ignoring the conversation as he had learned a key piece of information. Naruto had already left the village. The real Itachi was still continuing Black Boar's route and coming close to the Nara compound where a conversation between father and son was occurring. It just isn't plausible unless we convince both. The manpower needed to rebuild and deal an effective strike exceeds ours alone. Shikamaru was explaining to his father, nodding in agreement. But I do believe it will be difficult to convince Kusa to supply the number of forces needed for a fully successful strike. They have never been the most keen to support attacks on small villages. But we don't need numbers that large from Kusa. Honestly, we could make do with Suna's support, but convincing another independent village is meant to prevent another great war. Shikamaru waved it off. Getting Kusa is meant to demonstrate a strong three-prong alliance, while demonstrating it is not reckless revenge. An alliance between two major nations and a key minor nation would be too dangerous for any of the three still solitary major villages to risk a massive war. But recent news have spoken of stronger alliances with Kumo and Iwa. Shikaku commented. Shikamaru waved it off. We both realized that is propaganda for use in the trade treaty between the Land of Lightning and the Land of Fire. Shikaku nodded. True, but it does signal they are open to one if the event arises. And an invasion as such could offer one. Shikamaru paused for a moment. Well, it might be easier if we used Kigakur as our third ally. They have less reason to oppose a Togakur, but we do have a stronger alliance with them, especially considering Naruto's relationship with the leader. Shikaku stroked his beard. I hadn't even thought of that. And if memory recall, they have a Jinchuriki as well to bolster their forces. Shikamaru's eyes widened. They do? Shikaku nodded. It was a prize they won from Suna in the first Shinobi War. I remember fighting alongside him in the third war. They have a new one now, though. I remember him getting killed near the end. Shikamaru liked that news, but let out a sigh. This is troublesome to think about. I think I'm going to get Mom to yell at him when we get back for planning an invasion before he gets into office. Shikaku smirked before his face dropped. Crap, I forgot to grind those antlers up. Talk later, kid. Shikamaru waved him off and decided to go outside and cloud watch and forget that troublesome Naruto and that troublesome order of a troublesome war with a Togakur. Hands in his pockets, he enjoyed the day off he got from the emotional woes of his sensei, which was a drag to contemplate. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the Anbu who would often go by his estate. His skin-tight uniform caught his attention and he began to walk over to him. Itachi worried slightly as he saw Shikamaru walk towards him, as he was not sure what would be the best course of action. He obviously knew things, but there was little he could do about it. So, he decided to stay quiet and hope he could leave without any issues. Shikamaru stopped in the shade of the tree Itachi was in and laid down to watch. While laying down, he spoke to the Anbu. Anbu-san, shouldn't you be going out and trying to catch Itachi-san? He is no doubt after Naruto and Jiraiya-sama. And it is good to see you are eating well instead of weaseling out of meals. Your clothes used to be a bit more loose. Itachi simply nodded in his Anbu mask and left. Inwardly, he could not help but shiver. This Shikamaru Nara was a highly intelligent and formidable opponent. But at least he saved him the hassle of chasing Naruto Uzumaki and had the excuse to go back to his leader empty-handed. Kakashi Haddock was a man of few priorities. One of which was to his village, Konoha. It was not a major priority, in fact he rarely had to make it one, but it was without a doubt a key one that he would die for. His second priority would be to the genin team he had passed. Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and even Sai were all important to him, though Sai was far behind them in priority scale due to newness. And the fact that he was a Danzo pawn, that fact cannot be stressed enough. He was willing to die to protect them, all of them, as long as they didn't try anything to him or his village, i.e. Sai. The third would be Obito Uchiha, the best man Kakashi ever knew, even better than Sensei. He owed him his life, and Kakashi wanted to make sure every day he lived up to that burden he carried. It was all the better than it lapped with his second priority. His fourth was to Minato and his son. That was instrumental to him. The fifth and final priority in Kakashi's life was undoubtedly the most major of them, though it was by far the most disposable, Icha. Oh, how he loved Icha and that fantastic literary genius of the great sage Jiraiya. 8 books had been published in the last 12 years and he had read them each a dozen times or more. It was his favorite pastime because it freed him from being a shinobi. He didn't have to worry when he was reading Icha Tactics or Icha Kunoichi Academy, he could focus on his book. He made sure to read them slowly, often double or triple reading the best parts. They were not long books and, if Kakashi had cared to, he could have memorized them all word for word with or without his Sharingan. But he didn't. He kept his mind quiet as he read those books, allowing himself to enjoy them almost anew each time he read one. He had heard from a monk on a mission that meditation was the closest way to enlightenment for the soul. But he was certain that if he lent that monk Icha passion, the monk would find enlightenment was a bit closer than he realized. Kakashi was truly the greatest fan of Icha, so it was no surprise to see him relaxing on the wall of Konoha's gates, lazily reading the aforementioned Icha passion at sunrise. Sleep was not a friend to Kakashi the night before, as he was worried for the health of his friend Kurenai. So he got up, got dressed, and headed to one of the peaceful locations he would read at. A location the Nara clan was jealous of, since it was both in perfectly plain sight to make it useless for hiding, but ideal for rest and relaxation. However, after the dangerous villain in the novel had forced his way into the lovely heroine's bedroom in the middle of the night, Kakashi could not help but lose focus on the book. The focus was not of disinterest, the manner of which the hero would burst into the scene was his favorite action sequence Jiraiya had ever written, but of a new interest. As mentioned before, Kakashi has 5 priorities in his life, but a 6th one lingered on and off that list. His best friend by default, Mighty Guy. The default was a major asterisk in that he had never looked to make him a friend, but it was the case. He did care for Guy, but anyone that knew of his abrasive and gung-ho personality understood the meaning better in small doses more than others. And, unless that primal grunt of youth power was by another grown man, he heard Guy coming along the walls of the village. Kakashi had hearing that was better than most people, developed by years of work in Anbu fine-tuning his senses, working endlessly on ensuring that his Ninken could not be affected by sounds he was incapable of hearing, but mostly because his hearing was perfect and a little chakra never did anybody wrong. With that in mind, Kakashi listened in and heard 2 pairs of footsteps coming from the direction of Guy. Which meant his little apprentice was running with him, which meant he would try and act cool, which meant he was going to challenge Kakashi to a task, which meant Kakashi might actually have to do something. He was not in the mood, so he decided to make his exit. Which meant he wasn't making his exit since he knew damn well that Rock Lee was still in the hospital and couldn't move much in his crutches. The pace the Guy plus 1 group were going at, based on the speed of the sounds reaching Kakashi, were too much for any person on crutches. Which meant someone else had decided to take the plunge of training with Guy. Something was actually willing to subject themselves to that spandex and those eyebrows for an extended period of time because they wanted to. He knew enough to know it wasn't the branch Hyuga or the weapons girl, so his curiosity peaked. Peaked enough that he actually shut his book on the good part and decided to take a peek at who was willing to train with Guy before the sun had risen. From Guy, he was in a fantastic mood. He had been down for weeks after his precious student, Rock Lee, was crushed by the dastardly work of Gaara Suna. In conjunction with his loss to the evil missing Ninatachi Uchiha, he was feeling rather unyouthful. But things changed the day before when somebody came to him with a goal. A most youthful goal of bettering themselves and making them the best they could be. He was ignoring the most unyouthful cause underlying this reasoning for the moment. Come on, those weights are nothing. Embrace your power of youth and let loose. Guy told his companion with gusto. His companion grunted. Well, they are something to me. Putting 10 kilograms on anybody would slow them down. The companion thought for a moment as they trotted as fast as they could. I'm curious, how much are Lee's weights? I mean, I saw them at the exam. I smiled. Of course, that was impressive. That was 170 kilograms on each leg. Or was it 180? I don't remember, but it was incredible to see him work so hard to be able to do that. So, I'm guessing your weights are even more. The companion asked, wondering how much the human body could truly endure. Of course, I must provide a youthful example for my student Lee. At all times, I carry 200 kilograms on my legs. The companion didn't look too impressed. And my vest has weights inside of it weighing another 200 kilograms, meaning 600 kilograms in all. Do you think you want to match that goal someday? The companion immediately began to shake their head. I think I will stick to 10 kilograms for now. To themselves, they mouthed 600 kilograms. Can I carry that around with him? I began to laugh. The gates are ahead, which means we are done 4 laps, we have another lap to go. Another one? The companion looked incredulous. Of course. Lee and I do a dozen in the morning as our warm-up. You can rest after the next one, this is your first day under my routine. I will complete the rest. And if I can't make sure you finish this next lap, I will do another 10 for not having enough youth to make sure you succeed. The companion began to have regrets about talking to Guy, so he would help them. As the 2 of them passed by the doors of the gates, a 3rd person began to follow them in their routine. Are you having a good morning? Kakashi lazily asked politely. I gave a grin. Ah, my rival Kakashi. Are you interested in running my 7 laps with me after this one? To get your youth flowing. Kakashi groaned. Youth, youth, youth. He almost admired his energy, but that damned word. Perhaps another day, Guy. Rather, I was curious. Since your student has been stuck in the hospital, have you decided to steal one of my cute students? He drew his attention to Guy's companion. I have to say, I was most surprised to see you of all people running this early with Guy, Sakura. The pink-haired genin gave a huff and nodded. Hey, Kakashi-sensei. I didn't think you could wake up this early. She was focusing on her running and was forcing her legs to move forward. Well, I usually don't, but the path of life had a little birdie wake me up so I could save one of his little birdie friends from a starving cat who had accidentally run away from its owner. As it turned out, the owner was in one of the houses right next to the wall, so I returned the cat to them. I happened to hear you and decided to see what was going on. Kakashi lied masterfully. However, Sakura was a master bullshit detector. Well, Guy began to weep tears of joy for the little bird that survived and the cat who was saved from starvation. Sakura just gave him a grimace. You were at the gate reading a pervy book, weren't you? Like that one time we found you when we were supposed to be moving a bunch of books for a civilian bookstore to the bigger place down the street. Sakura accused her sensei as she willed herself forward. Kakashi debated, looking shocked, but decided to simply refute his precious little student's accusation. Mr. Whiskers was starving, and you are accusing me of fabricating him? What a nerve. I should be offended. But I forgive you. His eyes smiled for his guarded mouth. So tell me, did you decide to leave Team 7 for Team 9 to replace Rock Lee? Why wasn't I informed? His eyes now looked disappointed. The ears of wearing a mask allowed for spectacular movement of your eye muscles to communicate your feelings. Just thought you ought to know. I looked offended. Do you think I would dare replace Lee, Kakashi? He is my student, regardless of if he is in a hospital bed or not. He is a member of Team 9 forever. Or until the academy declares a new Team 9, Kakashi mused to himself. His musings were broken up by his student's explanation. I would never leave Team 7 and Sasuke-sensei. I am only working with Guy to make myself a better kunoichi. Kakashi looked at her, interested in this bout of self-betterment. I always let Naruto and Sasuke do all the fighting, and even when Ino took me out of the exams, I didn't do enough to make a difference in the month between them. I want to do more, so when I ran into Guy yesterday, I knew I had a chance. He made Rock Lee a super shinobi, I thought he could do the same for me. Kakashi smiled at this. Sakura was learning that most shinobi can't be babied around and pushed to improve. They had to improve of their own free will. Her teammates wanted to be the best, so they did what she did. Trained hard and found the best teachers they could. He was a little disappointed that 2 of his 3 students looked elsewhere, but he'd live with that. So I am guessing you are going to take taijutsu lessons from Guy then? He asked her. I shook his head. Well, I assume it is possible for her to begin my taijutsu regiment and have her become a great youthful beast like Lee and I. Her taijutsu was not what she came to me for. Rather, it is her physical fitness. Sakura looked serious. I know I am not in great shape as a shinobi, so I am going to work harder. I am going to get a bigger chakra reserve, become twice as strong and 5 times as fast. Kakashi wondered if he was indeed seeing a twinkle of fiery determination in her eyes. Regardless, Kakashi was happy with Sakura's effort. She was taking herself seriously as a shinobi. With her already elite chakra control skills and the second highest IQ in her graduating class, the intangibles of advancing in rank were there. It was simply the drive that she needed and the drive she had found. It looked like Team 7 was going to survive, with or without their glue Naruto. Then, I'm going to turn Sai into paste. He thinks he is so superior to us, and I know for a fact he looks down on me. His creepy smile needs to be wiped off the face of the earth. I and Kakashi sweat dropped as they ran. Guy was happy to see someone who wanted to learn from him, but the most unyouthful plans she had to use from it had given him pause. Only the thought that his energy could conquer her bad thoughts and realize the greatness of being happy and secure with oneself let him start this endeavor. Well, Kakashi knew exactly what she was talking about. It happened just yesterday. Flashback. The challenge had been set by Sai himself. He wished to fight Sakura while he was incapacitated, meaning his arms were tied behind his back. He figured that it would be useful to be prepared to have extreme hardship forced upon you during battle, without weapons and injured. He also vocally pronounced Sakura the perfect weakness to test his first effort at armless fighting against. Of course, this would stir up her anger and motivate her to fight. She was certain she was going to squash the new teammate. So Kakashi tied up his arms behind his back and let the spar begin. Watching it unfold embarrassed both Kakashi and Sasuke. Sakura was a decent fighter, but she was simply too slow in her movements. All of her shuriken and kunai were missed by at least 3 hairs, her punches were ignored, and her kicks were mostly blocked. And Sai, without his weaponry, unleashed a mastery of kicks and dances that allowed him to both avoid the angry kunoichi and set himself into position for his next offensive maneuver. A trio of kicks that resembled Sai dancing on her head knocked her out for a second, ending the bout. Sasuke was actually considerate enough to help her up while Sai undid the bindings on himself. He stretched and walked over to Sakura with his fake smile plastered on. That was a surprising outcome. I was not certain I would win this time, but it appears I defeated you thoroughly. You are much weaker than any kunoichi I have ever met, Sakura-san. Sasuke had to physically restrain her from attacking Sai for a few minutes before she went limp. Letting her go, Sakura got up, brushed herself off, and stormed away from the training ground. Is she quitting? Sai asked innocently. Even Sasuke wanted to punch him in the face for that. Flashback ended. Thinking about it, Kakashi could not blame her one bit. She had been embarrassed by Sai, and he knew she wanted to fix it. Deciding he was actually hungry, he made his final remarks. I wish you well on your effort, Sakura. Just make sure you are at the meeting spot by the time I am there. You don't want to let your side efforts affect your career. Sakura actually pouted. But you don't show up for at least 2 hours after our regular meeting time. Kakashi pointed his finger in the air sagely. I did not say on time. I said before I got there. Sakura understood and grinned. Thanks, Kakashi-sensei. I'll see you at the training ground. Kakashi nodded his farewell and left Sakura to her physical training. A cruel thought came over him as he re-entered the village. I should show up on time today. He knew that would be mean to Sakura, but he was interested in how it felt. He hadn't been on time in years for something, even if it was just a few minutes late. In fact, he was going to show up early. He was going to go there right now and read. Wouldn't Sasuke be surprised? He doubted Sai felt significant emotions. Sasuke was indeed stunned. 2 hours later, Sakura was pissed. She threw a weight at him. He neglected to dodge. Big mistake. It hit him in his groin. It hurt. Badly. Kakashi dismissed them for the day. He needed ice immediately. It was noon, and the Narutos were working. He was determined to do everything he could to make up for the lack of training yesterday and in Oicho, so he made 50 clones. Jiraiya said it was too much for his brain to handle, but Naruto got annoyed and said he could handle it. When Jiraiya continued to protest, Naruto let his frustration show and said something that shocked Jiraiya. I know what I can do. And as your Hokage, I command you to let me do it. Jiraiya couldn't help but feel offended by that statement. It sounded entitled. With that in mind, he changed up what the plans were for the day. In one grouping, 15 Narutos worked with balloons to try and pop them using only their chakra. They were growing angry at their continued failures to pop a stupid balloon because they knew they had to finish this step today. They had too much on the line of proving to themselves they could be strong and proving that they could be Hokage. They were also angry at the 2 clones who were not trying to pop the balloons. It had taken them a bit to notice, but saw that those clones were making as few bulges as possible. Eventually, the self-proclaimed leader interfered with their efforts, 2 other clones with balloons in hand, backing him up to the non-triers. Yo, Clone 44 and Clone 46, what are you guys doing? You know the goal is to pop the balloon, right? He said, looking down at them. Clone 46 looked back at him. Look, just cause you are Clone 1 doesn't make you the boss of us. And if you think you know exactly what we are trying to do. He looked away and began focusing on the balloon. Clone 1 grunted. Yeah, this is supposed to be a sphere. But that isn't the point. It needs power, and we are trying to give it enough power. So stop your lollygagging and get to work. Clone 44 rolled his eyes. Like you, 3 and 5 have gotten much done already. Clone 5 got angry and threw the water balloon at 44. You are just a quitter, 44. He caught it with ease. Looks like you need a new balloon, 5. He held both balloons in his hand and decided to roll with it. With each hand, 44 tried to create a perfect ball of chakra. As 5 stomped off for his new balloon and 3 followed, 1 just kept glaring at 44. He tried to keep his concentration on both balloons, but 1 got loose when he put too much chakra in his left hand and it fell out, splattering on the ground. 1 laughed. You can't control the balloon for crap, 44. At least I can hold on to it. He mocked him. 44 turned to him and stuck out his tongue. Whatever, it was just hard to do. I was putting a lot of power in both hands, so it was tougher to concentrate. Both hands? 46 quipped, thoroughly distracted by the fighting. He looked to his balloon and back to the clones 1 and 44. Both hands. Their eyes lit up in understanding what 46 was trying to say. Both hands. Well, there was an epiphany with the Rasengan clones, another 15 clones were trying to learn all about politics and how to speak Politican. Jiraiya's clone was making sure they stayed in line for this lesson. It was like he was teaching a class of 15 Naruto since, well, he was. One could imagine how well that went. Now, let me be clear. If a neutral party suddenly cuts off communications, it is best to suspect you. He pointed to Clone 16. He looked around in a panic. He swore he had been listening. They're talking with the enemy. He guessed blindly. Jiraiya nodded. Yes. Communication with a hostile party is likely, though far from the only option. It is best to increase or decrease your efforts to talk with them. Which one, cloney? He pointed to 16 again. I just answered 1. He protested. Jiraiya clone squinted his eyes. It was in the same position. Sorry about that, you all look alike. He joked, which the Narutos did not find funny. He pointed to 1 on the opposite side to make sure he didn't make the same mistake again. You. 25 gave it a thought. He had no idea, but he did have a question. Are they strong? The Sannin clone looked interested. Why does it matter? 25 shrugged. I don't know. But if I had to fight someone, I'd rather have Kakashi than Konohamaru fighting next to me. He logically explained. Jiraiya nodded. Close, but the key factor is value, not strength. A strong nation may have little practical value to ally with, while a weak nation with strong value is more important. It's why we side with Kusa over Iwa if they try to start things diplomatically. But doesn't Iwa suck in general? Clone 23, sitting next to 25 asked. Jiraiya shrugged. I mean the people individually aren't that terrible and the leader isn't evil or anything. But in general, yes, the women in Iowa do suck. There was a long pause between that joke and the Naruto clone's next move. This pause was the clones processing the dirty pun Jiraiya just told to them. They all groaned and Clone 25 had tomatoes he began to throw at Jiraiya. Wait, when did you get tomatoes? He asked, confused as the red fruit veggie flew by his head. 25 gave a grin. I snuck them from the groceries. Who likes tomatoes anyway? A certain Uchiha sneezed from his efforts to track down Danzo on his day off. Jiraiya let out a loud groan himself. For future reference, don't throw tomatoes at your sensei. He was met with a tomato to the face. Clone 25 met a shuriken to the face and poofed out of existence. The distraction of Clone 25 poofing proved to be ill-timed for the real Naruto Uzumaki, who was dealing with Taijutsu with the real Jiraiya. By handling Taijutsu, what is meant is that Jiraiya was kicking Naruto's ass in retribution to the little temper tantrum he had thrown earlier. He knew what he was going through, but it didn't mean he could be a prima donna to his sensei. The ability to make the final say yours would be a good one for Naruto to know once he was Hokage, but you don't disrespect your sensei. Jiraiya was technically forcing Naruto to fight in the various positions he had learned earlier and try to land a hit. He punished Naruto anytime he was totally wrong with the position and he could see the frustration on Naruto's face growing. At one point he moved to make the shadow clone hand sign and was admonished by Jiraiya. Look, Gaki, I'm trying to teach you Taijutsu, not swarm tactics. I don't care if you are gonna be Hokage or not once we get back in the village, but right now, this is my world. And in my world, if you do that, I'm gonna put back on that seal Orochimaru gave you during the exams and make this 10 times harder than it has to be. And I don't want to have to work 10 times harder because you couldn't follow your sensei's orders. Do you understand? Naruto understood, which Jiraiya liked to see. He would go to tough love in an instant if it helped, and he remembered how it worked for Minato when he was a genin, along with Hinata and Koba, his teammates. He hoped his fates would not be like those three, taken early by the cruel realities of the shinobi world. Back to the distraction of the destruction of Clone 25, Naruto was attempting to dodge a haymaker Jiraiya had thrown at his face. While the plan was to duck underneath the blow and try for a leg sweep, the random influx of memories gave Naruto a second of pause, a second that allowed for Jiraiya's fist to go from near his body to near Naruto's nose. Naruto tried to turn away from the blow, but this only let it connect the dead center of his left eye. As the punch was followed through, Naruto was sent flying with a giant yelp coming from him, bouncing off the ground twice after he landed. The massive bruise he would get from the fist was already forming. Jiraiya let out a grunt. What happened there, Naruto? You were supposed to dodge. Gingerly raising a hand to his aching face, Naruto replied. Your stupid clone killed my stupid clone. Well, what did your stupid clone do? Jiraiya questioned. Naruto rolled his good eye. Nothing bad, he just threw tomatoes at him. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes. Which tomatoes? Naruto shrugged, careful not to bother his eye. The ones you went and got yesterday from that random dude. Jiraiya let out a sigh. That was for my famous bird and bark stew. He complained, though Naruto was glad that he wouldn't have to taste something as disgusting sounding as that. That's it, I know you got cup ramen in your bag. I'm confiscating it for me and Shin's dinner. Jiraiya began to walk off to the main campsite. Naruto looked incredulous. What are you talking about? That's my ramen. And why are you punishing me? It was my clone's fault. And who do your clones take after, genius? Don't worry, you can still have my bird and bark stew. But it doesn't really taste right unless you have the tomatoes. Come on, pervy sage. Naruto was beginning to whine, following Jiraiya. The only way I will stop is if you can forcefully stop me. Jiraiya told him his plan. You just nearly broke my face. How am I supposed to stop you with a nearly broken face? Naruto complained, pointing to his quickly coloring eye. Jiraiya just shrugged. Hey, is your cup ramen the spicy kind? I really like the spicy stuff. Naruto jumped in front of Jiraiya with a determined look in his eye, causing Jiraiya to stop. He entered one of the stances he had been taught. Fine, then I'm gonna stop you. No one messes with my ramen. Jiraiya let out a grin. That's more like it, kid. He slipped into his stance as well, ready to fight. Naruto lunged at him with a right, but Jiraiya swatted it off of him and returned it with a right of his own. Naruto moved his head only slightly and let it pass by his head before striking hard at the extended bicep with a stiff sudden backhand fist. Naruto carried it with a strike to his right knee which Jiraiya jumped over with ease, bringing his arm back to his body. Seeing Jiraiya in the air, Naruto took a jump back himself, not wanting to get caught off guard. He waited for him to land before he pushed forward with his assault, trying to force Jiraiya back. Naruto threw a three-punch combo, but Jiraiya simply sidestepped the first two and caught the third with his fist. It didn't stay captured for long, as Naruto jumped up to deliver a kick to the head of the Sannin. He ducked under the blow, shielding his head from a sudden change of direction. Naruto wisely used his momentum to pull himself from Jiraiya's grip, landing on one foot as he immediately began a turn around to punch Jiraiya. However, his imbalance was exploited as he performed a leg sweep to Naruto's only stable leg. It connected just as his other leg reached the ground, giving him barely enough time to push off and perform a backflip to restore balance and create distance. "Naruto, if you keep running away, it will be easier for me to confiscate the ramen," Jiraiya reminded him. This provided motivation as Naruto closed a distance and unleashed a solo barrage of blows that were on point. Jiraiya refused to show it, but he wondered if he would get a few bruises from blocking Naruto's blows all day. He was also happy to see that, when push came to shove, Naruto was actually doing the stances right and using them well enough. It was almost enough to forgive the earlier rudeness and the loss of the tomatoes. Almost. Jiraiya caught another kick and proceeded to begin beating Naruto down yet again. Tough love was so fun when you dished it out. Tough love was also what happened to 10 of the remaining 20 clones delivered by Shin. He had been ordered by Jiraiya to whittle down the number of clones quickly and knew the perfect excuse to get it done. He told the clones to hit each other with kunai and try not to vanish. It was a test of clone endurance, he had remarked. Those 10 believed him and, in a matter of moments, were gone from the face of the earth without enough information for Naruto to register. Win-win. The final 10 clones had a different mission. Shin was directing them on performing an offensive, which Jiraiya wished Naruto had known in Areoicho. Kaiten. Grand Fireball Jutsu. Shin was also benefiting from this exercise, as he was interested in learning. So, with the directions Jiraiya had given Shin and clones were working on actually performing the. However, the process of performing it was becoming too hot to handle, especially in the mouth. Clone 37 and 39 had run off to find a bit of water to cool off their mouths, and a few of the other clones were close to doing the same thing. Even Shin was beginning to feel the urge to get a drink of water. The fireball involved performing the seals in order to correctly align one's chakra to fire and, while trying to allow one's inner chakra into the air that a person breathed, blowing out through the fire chakra formed by the seals and unleashing a fireball. The clones rightly felt that the technical mumbo-jumbo made it seem twice as hard as it actually was, but it didn't change the fact it wasn't a low level of entry. It had been a rite of passage for the Uchihas, and they practiced as children into their genin years, oftentimes before it was perfected. Naruto and his clones did not have that history of experience. The one benefit that these clones had was the chakra to fail over and over again. Shin was also thinking he should be able to do this faster than the progress he was seeing. "What am I doing wrong, Danzo-sama?" He could not help but think to himself. By the end of the day's work closer to sunset on this fall day, neither Shin nor the clones had gotten a real fireball to be unleashed. There was fire, there was a ball, but it wasn't the same kind of fireball that Naruto was used to seeing courtesy of Sasuke. As the sun set on this long day of work, the 37 remaining clones, 37 and 39, were taken out by a squirrel while they were looking for water. Naruto was taking that secret to the grave. Shin, Jiraiya clone and Naruto all came together in the campsite. The 15 Rasengan clones were grinning at the other 22 clones and others. "I did it," Clone 1 pronounced proudly. Clone 46 coughed behind him, knowing he was full of shit. "Well, we did it," he meagerly clarified. Jiraiya and the real Naruto were happy with this development. "Well, show me then," Jiraiya responded. With a nod, Clone 1 and Clone 46 each took a balloon in hand and began to pump chakra. Then, their second hands covered the top part of the balloon and began to pump chakra in different directions from the first. In a few seconds, the balloon popped, getting both clones wet. They looked up to Jiraiya and grinned, while the original was grinning as well. "Well, it isn't as cool as doing it with one hand. I guess there is nothing wrong with a two-handed Rasengan. Congratulations, Gakis," he looked at the original and the clones. "You have completed the first step of the Rasengan." All the clones and the original Naruto began to cheer in happiness, the first time really being happy in days. Jiraiya didn't let his appreciation for the celebration last long, as he walked over to his bag and grabbed something from within. He called out to the original to catch, and did. Naruto looked down at the hard red rubber ball in his hand. "What's this, sensei?" he was wondering. Jiraiya let out a smirk. Step 2. Pop the ball. An a cappella of groans was music to his ears. Finally, they were able to spend another night in a hotel room. Naruto couldn't help but think to himself. It had been a while since they were last in a town, and overall Naruto was wondering if maybe this journey was a bust. They had been gone for about 3 weeks by now, and though Naruto had learned a lot and could keep learning a lot by doing this, he was worried about the village. He was supposed to be Hokage Kami, damn it. And some alcoholic healer shouldn't be important enough to keep him from his duties for so long. He had dreamt of being Hokage forever, and now that it was here he had this random mission to attend to. Jiraiya had made it clear it was important and all, but Naruto was still working on being more patient. He thought he had improved with that, but definitely not to how patient Gigi had been with him. Naruto sighed as he laid in his bed, with a kind of non-social Shin with him in the other bed polishing his sword while Jiraiya had scoured for information. He had sent a clone with him in order to experience it, but the real Naruto was glad to have the break from action. Heck, he had finally perfected the Rasengan all by himself. Yeah, he needed 2 hands for it while Jiraiya needed 1, but he could still kick ass with it. So yeah, he could do nothing, something he was aware would be a rare commodity in the future. Shouldn't you be doing something? Shin seemed to read his mind and say the opposite. Naruto shook his head from his bed. Shin-san, I have been working hard for weeks and will have to work even harder for years once I get back. I remember, a few years ago, Gigi told me he rarely got breaks from his job, so he had to enjoy the time he could find. So I am taking his advice right now and enjoying this time. But this is specifically time for you to train. You need to become as fit for the Hokage position as possible. Wasting time may seem like a luxury now, but it could prove dangerous if it causes you to fail in your duties in the future. Shin counter-argued. Naruto cursed to himself. Shin was right. Yeah, relaxing was nice, but he was trying to prove he could be Hokage once he got back and became Hokage. He hated it that Shin was right. Fine, pervy sage left his bag of educational books, I think. Can you get me the one on Fire Country? He was on my ass that I had to know where everything was for missions, and I haven't put much effort into it yet. Might as well do that now. Naruto may need to work hard, but he could also be lazy once. Shin didn't mind. That seems like a good idea, Naruto-san. Knowing locations is essential for a Hokage. Especially since some towns have similar sounding names. He put the sword on the bed and reached over to rummage through Jiraiya's bag. No traps, which meant he had hoped this would happen. He found the book in question and underhand threw it right into Naruto's waiting hands. Thanks, Shin-san. He immediately dove into the book, looking for the interesting stuff to catch his eye before he started reading the boring stuff that he would fall asleep on. The more energized you were, the longer you could learn the boring stuff, a phenomenon Naruto found worked for him in the academy. He read about a gambling town only 30 kilometers east of their current location and made a note of it in his head. He began to focus on the topography of the names of certain tracts of forest and of certain springs and lakes and rivers, and Naruto fought to remember every part of it and stay up at the same time. It was one of the harder things he had done on this training tracking mission to date. He had been reading the book for 2 hours before Jiraiya returned with a look of frustration on his face. This town doesn't seem to have any good news about where Tsune-chan is either. This is really getting frustrating. Naruto looked up from his book and raised an eyebrow at Jiraiya. That sucks and all, but where is my clone? I don't seem to have his memories. Jiraiya put a finger up. Wait for it, wait for it. Naruto got the memories back and flinched with a disgusted look on his face. As you know, your clone thought he could outdo me and had a lead. I knew it was just a man trying to become your sugar daddy. Take that as a lesson for the real world. Naruto did not want to think any more about the bare-chested bear that tried to seduce his clone and immediately tried to erase the memories from his existence. He distracted himself. Well, I have an idea. I noticed it when I started reading this book earlier, but Tanzakugai is only like 30 kilometers east of here. That is like half a day's walk. It has a lot of gambling and bars. It seems like the kind of place this Tsune chick would be. He pointed to the book. Jiraiya stared at him for a few seconds before slapping his head. Tanzakugai. Of course she is going to be in Tanzakugai. Why wouldn't she be in Tanzakugai? It is their special season and it is beautiful there right now. Naruto, you are a genius. We head to Tanzakugai in the morning. Naruto was excited and couldn't wait. Elsewhere, Tsunade won a 125,000 Ryo hand with a king and queen full house in poker. She tested her luck again and got 4 aces to win a 100,000 Ryo pot. She turned to Shizune and Taunton who were excited for her sudden luck. Tsunade quickly brought down the mood as she whispered to them. I think our stay here won't be as long as projected, Shizune-chan. Shizune was confused and Taunton raised his eyebrow in confusion as well. Wasn't winning a good thing. Naruto Uzumaki looked around in horror at the scene around him for a mere moment. It had been going according to plan. He had gotten the priest Vegeta to battle him in a field outside the town of Areoicho. He was making sure that he did not bleed since he was certain Vegeta could do all of that voodoo stuff if he ingested somebody's blood. At least, that was what he had been told by Kazama and Hinoko. So, he was using what he knew and what he had learned to his advantage. He was using his shadow clones to try and tear that dangerous-looking scythe away from the priest since it was his main weapon and tool in the fight. Naruto was certain that the second he got the weapon away from him, Vegeta would be as dangerous as the damn daimyo's wife cat, Tora. After 30 minutes and close to 40 shadow clones, however, he was no closer to tearing apart the side from the man than the man was at capturing him. He had made sure with his new shunshin to never let the man near him unless he was attacking him personally. He was trying to do all the damage that he could to see if he could put his immortality to the test. And though Naruto had hit him 2 times with death blows, Vegeta had tanked them and was still fighting. But Naruto had plan B that he was using as well, the best chance to destroy Vegeta. Foolishly, he had thrown off his cloak, so he was able to attach explosive tags to the back of the man without him realizing it. By now he had 9 attached to him, desperately wishing he could just use the Rasengan in order to destroy this Vegeta bastard. He was in control of this war. But he had made a stupid mistake. Instead of ushering away the Crowder Areoicho villagers, he let them watch the defeat of their tyrant. He was keeping an eye on them, making sure Vegeta didn't make a move towards them, but he was focused on Naruto. He kept yelling about killing him, but Naruto wasn't worried. Eventually, Priest Vegeta got pissed at never hitting the real Naruto with his deadly scythe. Expertly, he backflipped out of the triangle of shadow clone Naruto's and began to dig into his pants pocket. For the first time, Naruto heard the tinkling of glass clearly. "Wait, you have glass in your pockets?" Naruto was confused as hell. "Why glass?" Vegeta showed off an arrogant smirk before pulling something out of his pocket. Not something as flimsy as glass, but close enough. The villagers and Naruto quickly realized it was a vial of blood, and the villagers cringed. It took a few seconds for Naruto to realize what was going on, but he figured it out around the same time one of the terrified villagers yelled out to him. "He took some of our blood from us. That must be it." Naruto knew he had to deal with it or else the situation would go to shit. But his clones weren't fast enough. With expert precision, he pulled out the cork on the vial and quickly gargled the blood inside of it, spitting some on the end of his scythe. Knocking away a charging Naruto clone, he drew the ceremonial circle as he swallowed the blood. A second clone was exterminated by one of the pikes as Vegeta transformed into black and white. All the while he chanted a sacrifice to Jashin and promised he would spill the blood of the innocent. As the third clone dove over Vegeta, he quickly slammed a spike into his foot. In the crowd, a young girl's voice cried out in pain. Naruto's attention diverted to the source of the screaming. Quickly brought to the front of the crowd, a doe-eyed girl, no older than 6, hobbled to the front with a bloody bare foot, the same one Vegeta stabbed. Indeed, a great sacrifice for Jashin-sama. However, Uzumaki, I am a good man. Though Jashin-sama may compel me to kill you both, I will free the girl if you remove the things you placed upon my back, explosive tags I bet, and let me draw your blood. Be the good little ninja you are and die to protect some worthless whelp. But if you make a move against me, she dies and we start this over again." Naruto's instinct told him to do it. To get the girl out of dodge and figure out a way to escape his techniques before he killed him. Maybe use the Kyuubi. But the words of Jiraiya echoed in his head. "As a leader, you will have to do things you won't find honorable, but will need to do for the best of the village." They rang painfully true, as right now he was the leader of protecting these villagers and in a few months would be the leader of Konoha. He couldn't put this village at risk of Vegeta killing more people in the future. Or his village is at risk of losing their Hokage before he even gets the hat. Things might be different if Jiraiya and Shin were around or would help, but he suspected this was a test or something. And he couldn't fail it by doing something stupid like getting himself killed. But there was only one thing he could think of doing that would definitely end this fight. If he attacked, the innocent girl was dead. Trying to control his heavy breathing, he began to try and subdue his inhales and exhales. Then, the future leader slowly put his hand together in a hand sign. "There is no way in hell I'll let you get my blood." He tried delaying what he had to do. Now, I thought you were supposed to be some big hero. Please Jashin-sama as you give yourself to me as my sacrifice. I'm sure you don't want to watch me kill this girl." Mockingly, he began to poke one of his blades into his shoulder, causing the little girl to scream. Naruto forced his attention onto Vegeta, finally letting his hand sign fall into place. "You're right. I don't." His next words cracked midway through as he did what had to be done. "Activate." 2 people exploded into scraps as Naruto fled from the scene. Naruto forced himself to relive the reality of his failure, the reality of his first kill. It wasn't an enemy, it wasn't protecting his home, it was a little girl who was forced into a bad situation who was sacrificed because he wasn't good enough. He wasn't strong enough, he wasn't smart enough, he wasn't worthy of being Hokage. But he had spent weeks trying to fix that. He may have been fun-loving, wise-cracking Naruto Uzumaki, but he was also future Hokage and acted like it. He had to face tough things, and he was one of them. Jiraiya had given him a scroll after he handled the aftermath of Areoicho and told him its contents. Finally, Naruto had the courage to unseal it and face him. To face the face of Vegeta. Naruto had blown his bodies to smithereens, but the head remained intact and talkative. And now the head was on a stump just outside of the hotel they were staying in, only illuminated by the sunrise as Naruto watched him. I would say I'm hungry or thirsty, but we both know that is pointless, isn't it? Vegeta was surprisingly using small talk with him instead of ranting as expected. I wouldn't have brought you anything besides expired grocery store sushi and milk anyway. Naruto coldly commented on the worst meal he had ever eaten and remembered how badly it affected him. Vegeta rolled around a little as he chuckled. I've had worse. But I doubt you came here to talk about food, did you, Uzumaki? You want to talk about the little girl you killed, don't you? Vegeta smiled a sinister smile. Did you pick her vial on purpose? Naruto starkly questioned. Yes. Vegeta quickly responded in a snarky tone. Would you have really let her go? Naruto fired back. Of course. Vegeta responded in a second. Why join a bunch of killing freaks who pray to an evil god? Because mommy drank a lot of sake and my daddy hit me with a belt. Vegeta told him matter of fact. You're a shitty liar. Naruto judged the man. Gashin-sama doesn't like liars much. You want the truth? It was random, I would have killed her first before letting you go, and I was like this since I killed my mom on the way out the womb. Vegeta told Naruto with a bluntness that was genuine. Is there any way to stop you from being immortal? You are never going to get your body back and you probably want to play with your kami in hell. Naruto spoke venomously towards the head. First off, Jashin-sama has a domain in a realm that is superior to any place you may dream of going when you are sacrificed. Secondly, I won't tell you a thing. I don't doubt I will never get my body back, but who knows? Maybe I can grow a new body, maybe I can escape and find a new way to make offers to Jashin-sama. Question, where is my scythe? Vegeta suddenly asked. I won't tell you a thing. Naruto parroted the head. And I'm only asking to be nice. Once we get to the village, you'll talk. Even if you don't want to. Yamanaka's can do creepy stuff with your mind and the bald scar guy is hell of a lot tougher than you. Naruto foretold the fate of the bodiless Jashinist. That's cute. Hiden-sama is far scarier than anybody in Konoha. Vegeta complimented a mysterious man. Hiden? Is he like you, immortal and worships this Jashin dude? Naruto wondered if there really was a group like Vegeta that were immortal and got off on killing people. Like me? Hardly. I may be a disciple of Jashin-sama, but if anything Hiden-sama is his messiah. He is the greatest Jashinist the world has ever known. The fact that I know him makes me greater than anything you will ever be. He is so fearsome, he was asked to join a group of the strongest missing nin in the nations. Once he converts Akatsuki to Jashin-sama, there will be nothing to stop Jashin-sama from taking over this pathetic world. Vegeta went on a religious diatribe, but Naruto was no longer listening. The words Akatsuki had caught his ears. Akatsuki was the group that was after the tailed beasts like the Kyuubi and the Ichibi, and once had Orochimaru as one of its members. If this Hiden was as strong as Orochimaru and immortal, Naruto thought that would really suck. But he also saw Vegeta as a lead. Yeah, Jashin rules all, you become leaders of nations to maintain his power, not waste power on weak, I get your spiel. Well, I don't get it, but I'm not evil like you. Naruto cut him off. I don't know, killing a little girl is something pretty evil. Vegeta retorted. Naruto shot a glare at him. You would have killed her anyway, and I regret what I had to do every day since. I regret it even more since you managed to survive it. But I don't care about that right now. Really? I thought that was the only reason you brought me out. He questioned. What did this Hiden tell you about Akatsuki? I have heard about it, but I know nothing about it. Naruto asked him. Oh, scared about the big bad ninja. Even if I could tell you more, we didn't talk much. But since I'm a good priest, and you no doubt impressed Jashin-sama with helping me commit a lovely sacrifice, I will tell you what I know. Apparently, Akatsuki is based in Rain, or at least that is where Hiden-sa had to go. So if you want to enjoy your pathetic life before you are sacrificed, I would advise staying away. And he said he wasn't recruited alone, a blonde person who had mouths on their hands was with him. We didn't talk much about that, though. We were more concerned about our kills. Did you know you can rupture every organ save your heart in a sequence that keeps the person alive until you penetrate the heart? Or have you ever seen a man's liver where his head used to be? Hiden-sama is truly a master priest that makes the greatest sacrifices to Jashin-sama. Vegeta ran his mouth as Naruto grew tired of this cursed head. With a bit of ease, he grabbed him by his hair and put him on the ceiling scroll. Oh, I guess you don't like to hear about killing. I don't know why not, even Hiden would be impressed by what you did. You could be a master if you joined us. Naruto prepared to seal the head back into the scroll, but had a few last words for this burden of his. Jashin sucks bear cum from their assholes. Naruto greatly insulted the man's god. As Vegeta nearly lost his head in anger, he was sealed back into the scroll. Naruto let out a sigh, knowing the insult was unnecessary but cathartic. He didn't feel that much better, even though he now knew that the girl was going to die either way. The man was irritating and too damn optimistic for Naruto's taste about something so disgusting and evil. But on the plus side, this guy turned out to be a goldmine about Akatsuki. Based in rain, hide in the Jishainist, and a blonde guy with hands on his mouth joining. Jiraiya would love this information. Taking a look at the sun, Naruto thought it was better to not go back to bed. They would be going out to Tenzaku quarters in a little while, so why not some morning training? He decided to go on a long jog, making a clone who would act as information for his senses and to practice chakra threads Akka strings a bit more. Once Shin had clued him in on its origins with puppeteering and the ability to control something, Naruto couldn't help but be interested in what it could do. Looking out from the hotel window, Jiraiya let out a sigh. Well, at least we know more about Akatsuki. He murmured aloud. Internally, he cursed the confirmation that rain was their base. Do you know who the blonde individual is? Shin asked the Toad Sage. He had seen Haiden once in a bingo book and knew a bit of his story, but the blonde was foreign to him totally. Jiraiya let himself nod. I do, but it is more hassle than it is worth. It sounds like the blonde is the eye with defect Deidara who stole a Kenjutsu and blew up a few buildings before he fled. All sightings of him mention the mouths on his hands. He was also the favorite student of the reigning Tsuchikage, so killing him would cause an issue even though the little brat defected. Especially if it was a Konoha shinobi that brought him down. On the plus side, we are getting a better idea of who we are messing with. Kisame Hoshigaki, Itachi Uchiha, Sasori of the Red Sands, Zetsu, Haiden and Deidara. Downside is, that is a group that could go into one of the big five and might be able to stage a coup. And those aren't even the leaders. Jiraiya mused on this deadly organization, especially worried considering the news of how Itachi and Kisame went after Naruto and missed a few weeks back. He hadn't told the kid since he needed to focus on training, but he would need to know soon enough. This does sound dangerous, but it is a collection of the best of the worst shinobi kind has to offer. Shin pointed out about this motley crew. He also knew Danzo-sama would find this information most valuable, depending on how much of it he already knew. Exactly, which is why I hope the kid is right. If Tsunadeheim is indeed in Tenzaku quarters, then we can be back in Konoha in probably a week or so. I will be able to stay a few weeks to help train Naruto up after he is announced, and then I have to do my main duties for a while. He won't be strong enough, so a figure like Tsunade is essential for our village. Jiraiya shook his head. We should have just gone with her in the first place, but Danzo decided to pull out some scheme, and the Hyuga made it easier for him by turning it into a vote between him and Naruto, rather than based on Naruto's competence. But what can I do? I am just a poor traveling writer who has a few tricks up his sleeve. In fact, I need a bit more material for my next book. He smirked at Shin. Some ladies love an early morning bath. I'll be back by 10 o'clock. Get him to read the geography book and go over the string stuff you have been working with him on. Jiraiya ordered his student secondary sensei before grabbing his writing materials and running out of the room. Shin let out a sigh, having gotten far too used to the man's antics. He looked out the window and saw the clone practicing manipulating a rock outside. The Hokage had no finesse in his technique to the point where Shin would say he had little potential as a puppeteer or even to match his abilities someday. But he did have a clever mind and a brute strength with the threads that was admirable. Yawning out any lingering exhaustion, Shin suited up and decided to help the clone with the technique Naruto was trying to develop. It did need a human target. On his run, the real Naruto found a stream not far from the path and decided to kill two birds with one stone. A little chakra control exercise never killed anybody as he hopped onto the shallow stream and began to follow it where it stayed perpendicular to the path he was forging. Naruto made sure to keep his ears open so he could hear if Shin or Jiraiya would call out for him, though he'd rather they just pop his clone. His mind relatively free of Oicho, he began to think other thoughts. First off, he couldn't wait to return to Konoha to hear from Shikamaru. He had an IQ of over 200, his battle strategy for how to take down a Togakur would be top-notch. Though they wouldn't be able to spring it out for a while, his lessons made it clear that making one of your first acts as a leader to declare war being generally a terrible idea, he was anxious for that day. He would complete what the Sandaime gave his life trying to do and kill Orochimaru. The thoughts of this being the wrong thing and being bloodthirsty came to him again and he shook it off. The war was being fought in his head between his peaceful ideology and the cold realities. He still remembered how Haku and Zabuza died and him declaring shinobis were not tools. But here he was, thinking about using his fellow men and women just like that. But it was for a good and noble cause in his eyes, but as Kakashi-sensei would probably point out, anything can be thought of as a good and noble cause to somebody. Orochimaru probably thought killing the Hokage and destroying Konoha was good and noble in his own way, Naruto speculated to himself. And he really didn't want to be like Orochimaru. Areoicho began to crawl back into his head, so Naruto changed topics. He wondered what this Tsunade and Shizune were really like. Pervy Sage had a lot of ideas about them and had told him a few things about the two of them, but he still didn't know for sure. Tsunade was apparently really vain and looked young while being as old as Jiraiya, while Shizune was around Kakashi's age and a bit of a pushover, in Jiraiya words. But they were both damn good medics and Jiraiya trusted Tsunade with his life. He knew that had to mean something. He had been a little interested in learning about medicine, but Jiraiya had dashed his dreams. Firstly, he needed to be elite so he could defend Konoha as needed and be respected by the other villages. And spending time to try and learn medicine would not make him elite for way too long. Secondly, his chakra control was still garbage compared to what he needed to have to be halfway decent. Apparently it was all about chakra control, which made him think about a pink-haired girl he liked to think about. Sakura-chan had awesome chakra control, he remembered when she nailed the tree climbing exercise in one go. If her control was that good, she might make an awesome medic nin. He was definitely going to bring it up to her when they came back. That, and ask her on a date. A date. One of the downsides to all this learning and hard work for him was he was thinking too much into things. Things like maybe a girl who would hit him for being nice and asking her out was not the girl for him. That maybe a girl who wasn't obsessed with his best friend would be a better girlfriend than one that is. Maybe he needed to move on from Sakura, but he thought that was unfair. It was a primal and sort of childish thought, but he thought it was unfair. Or the unfair thing was to force his affections on a girl who was clearly not interested. Naruto wanted to smack his head to get rid of the treacherous idea out of his head, but he heard a suspicious rustling in the bushes. It was the same suspicious sort of rustling that made him throw a kunai at Zabuza who was hiding in wait but substituted with a rabbit. Without hesitation, he pulled out a kunai from his pouch and sent it in the rustling direction. Naruto's eyes narrowed as a small puff of smoke went up, as he knew what that meant. Ninjutsu, which meant it was another shinobi. Naruto was quick to try and find the shinobi who was behind it, but nothing popped up at him. Nothing attacked and nothing flew in the air. Nothing happened. Still on edge, Naruto collected his kunai and made his way back to the hotel. He would need to inform them about what had happened and figure out what their next move would be. Naruto heard the sounds of his clone training and figured by the noises that someone else was with him. He decided to go straight to them first before heading back to the room. It was around 8 AM, so the town was waking up, so he tried not looking too suspicious. He walked in on his clone and Shin worked on a move that he had thought up the night before. It didn't seem like much progress, but he knew Suna wasn't built in a day. Hell, it took his dad 3 years to finish the Rasengan. Yo, I'm back from my morning run. I think we need to get moving early. He told Shin. Shin left the side of the practicing clone and walked over to Naruto. Move out early. Jiraiya-sama said we were leaving at 10 AM. How much earlier do we need to leave? He asked the blonde. Probably soon. Naruto narrowed his expression, making it clear he was being serious. On my run I heard something, and my gut instincts told me it wasn't something good. So I tossed a kunai at it and it went up in a puff of smoke. I don't know if it was some spy, a clone or somebody summoned, but I don't want to find out. Shin understood how serious it was. Are you sure it was not another Zetsu? He asked, his mind recounting the encounter on one of their first days out. Naruto shook his head. That guy stuck around when you killed him. This went into smoke, so it might be alive or it might not. I didn't get to see it, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't a Zetsu. Naruto began to look around. Hey, where is the pervert anyway? Is he still sleeping? Shin shook his head. No, he informed me he was doing some research before we headed out. Research? Naruto was confused for a moment before his face turned into disgusted recognition. Research for that orange book of his. He really needs to grow up. Shin could not help but to agree. Indeed. You think he was a fool if you met him in the street? Naruto let out a chuckle. Pervy Sage is a fool. He is just a good sensei and fighter. Shin gave him that one. Indeed, those aspects are not opposites. Such as being sensible and a leader. You fail to meet the standards for the first thing, but are natural at the second. Shin took a moment to pause before finishing his attempt at a joke. Really now, Hokage-sama? Who wears orange into battle? Naruto rolled his eyes. The great Hokage Naruto Uzumaki. He bluntly retorted. He put his hands together to make a shadow clone. Anyway, this guy is gonna get Pervy Sage while we pack up. The shadow clone quickly took his cue to leave, having a good guess where Jiraiya was, while the practicing shadow clone decided that he might as well dispel. Naruto got the memories back and focused on one key thing Shin had told the clone about. You are saying Danzo-san has almost perfect mastery of the wind element. And could probably teach me about it better than Kakashi-sensei. Naruto wanted to confirm what he had learned. Shin nodded as they made their way into the front of the hotel. Yes. I know for a fact that Kakashi's weakest element is wind, well there are only a handful of natural wind elements in Konoha, the strongest of them being Danzo-sama. I know he would be honored to instruct the new Hokage and wants to ensure that the man he puts his faith into becomes a great one. Shin buttered Naruto up to the offer. Sounds fantastic. I can't wait to start learning from him if he is really that good with it. Naruto was excited by finding an instructor that could really help him, so he didn't see the satisfied smile grace Shin's lips. Shin was pleased as he had found a way into the future Hokage's training regiment for his master. Maybe he can go 2 for 2. Indeed, perhaps you can work with Danzo-sama on the Rasengan. Jiraiya-sama did say that the Yondaime never completed and a master of wind manipulation should be vital in fully recognizing your father's technique. Shin continued on. Naruto nodded, opening up their door to the room that they had reached. That seems like a great idea. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone, am I right? Shin agreed, even more pleased that he had tied the Hokage even closer to his master. He would ensure that Danzo-sama would be proud of his accomplishments. The 2 of them had begun packing and were making sure they had cleaned everything up when the memories of his clone hit Naruto. He began to chuckle, leading Shin to raise an eyebrow. What is humorous, Naruto-san? He asked him sincerely. Naruto waved it off. Nothing much. Pervy Sage got caught by the hot springs owner who was used to kids peeking at girls. He has to clean the men's bathroom before they let him go. Naruto let out a chuckle. My clone ended up teasing him and got him really annoyed. But he knows what's up, it shouldn't be long. Shin accepted what Naruto told him and handed him a book he had grabbed a few moments prior. Alright then. Now, Jiraiya-sama told me earlier to have you continue reading the book you were reading yesterday. I will finish all the cleaning and packing, so take it and start reading. Naruto grumbled a little bit but quickly had the book in hand and was sitting on his bed, reading. Shin was satisfied and finished up everything before Jiraiya arrived. But the grunt, the Toad-san entered the room at 8:51 am. Kami dammit. Why do kids ruin all the good stuff? He asked hypothetically to the room. Without looking up, Naruto gave a clever response. I don't know. Why do perverted old men ruin all the good stuff? He didn't even bother to look up from the book, ignoring the glare Jiraiya was sending him. Eventually the glare eased up. Well, at least you are reading the book like I asked. Jiraiya let out a sigh. Put that away for now. I want to get there before noon, so we will need to hustle most of the way there. Why is that? Shin asked, obviously referring to wanting to be there by noon. 2 reasons. First, it will take a bit before we find her, so I want some daylight for us to do so. Second, unless it closed down in the last 5 months, a personal friend of mine is the chef at a great restaurant which offers one of my favorite meals in the Land of Fire. Nayatamori. Jiraiya was grinning pervertedly at the thought of it. Naruto rolled his eyes. Of course the pervert liked something like that. He put the book away into one of his pockets. Jiraiya snickered. Gaki, you don't know what you are missing. In fact, I'm going to take you to the restaurant to see what you are missing. He put his arm around Naruto's shoulders and began to give him sagely, in his mind, advice. Women were God's gift for this earth. And not appreciating them in all of their splendor is a mistake I, as your ever so handsome sensei and godfather, will do his best ensuring you do not make. So, allow me to teach you to revel in their splendor and learn about beauty in this world. Jiraiya waxed poetically. Naruto couldn't help but roll his eyes again. Pervy Sage, it sounds like you have a problem. A bigger problem than Kakashi has is about your books. Naruto shut down his plan. Girls were nice and all, but being obsessed about them seemed dumb. If you had to be obsessed about something, why not something really important? Like training a ramen. They squabbled for a short while, but were quickly out of the town and were tree jumping their way to Tenzaku quarters. Meanwhile, in a location not too far from the town, 2 men in cloaks were waiting. Sir, are you sure about this plan? It seems like it is taking far too long. The younger boy questioned the other. Now, Kabuto-kun, do not fret. My snakes will find the trail of my old teammates soon enough. It is just a matter of waiting. A predator does not get its prey going in blindly, you know this. The other man, clearly the snake-san in Orochimaru if one saw under his cloak, responded. Kabuto nodded. Of course. I wish I had talents more suited to scouting in moments like this. Orochimaru waved him off. No shinobi is perfect in everything. Not yet, anyway. He let out a short chuckle. He was certain his snakes would get the scent of the slug-san soon enough. Then she would heal his arms and he would be able to focus on finishing the job he had started during the failed Konoha crush. A few hours later, Jiraiya and company had stopped tree jumping and were using the main path to complete their journey to Tenzaku. They were walking leisurely and Naruto had the geography book out on his sensei's request. He was making sure to keep an ear to what the Sannin was saying. Alright, so the first thing I'm gonna do is head to the restaurant and put in a reservation for an 8 o'clock Nayatamori. Normally you have to plan these things a few days in advance, but I'm friends with the owner. You two are gonna head to the Koji's Tavern and Motel that is about 4 blocks south of the restaurant and get us reservations for tonight and make it possible for up to 3 days. Tanzaku is a big city, it might take a bit to find her or get clues if she isn't here. Then, I'll meet you at the motel with a map of Tanzaku. We will separate into groups, most of them the Gaki's clones changed into various people, and systematically search the city. We will stop after sunset, get dinner, and then head to any possible leads. Does everyone get the gamma plan? Shin told him he understood, while Naruto couldn't help but think that Jiraiya seemed really obsessed with an Mori. He understood that he was a super pervert and all, but didn't he peep and see naked girls all the time? What was so special about eating off one of them? Was it even sanitary? Soon enough, they were separating in the Tanzaku quarters in front of a restaurant called Ice Fire. Naruto couldn't help but think that was a stupid name, but he wasn't a chef or anything, so he wouldn't bring it up to the owners. They were probably perverts too, assuming this was the place that did the body sushi crap. He was right. Alright kids, the hotel is just over there. I'll be there in a little bit. And, while I think it should be obvious, the city is too big for you to do any physical training. So books and manners are all you get. He motioned to Naruto who was ignoring him mostly while skimming the book. Yeah, I heard you pervy sage. Come on Shin-san, let's get to this Koji's place. Naruto began walking in the direction Jiraiya had pointed to, and Shin silently followed. Naruto kept his nose in his book as Shin handled the room preparations. He knew he had to remember this stuff, but it was so damn boring. And Ruka was awesome and all, but he was boring when it came to this stuff as well. He would have to find someone who wasn't boring, but also smart enough to know this stuff. Sakura popped into his head, but his earlier doubts on her re-emerged and a new person would need to be found. Someone nice. Maybe Shikamaru or Hinata. Hinata was nice and probably really smart. Naruto nodded to himself. He could just ask Hinata for some help. She was weird and all, but that was cool in Naruto's eyes. Like Sakura's pink hair and confident attitude. Naruto shook his head free of those thoughts and began to think again on the matter at hand. He had heard a lot about what they looked like, so once they started hunting for them they would find them. Especially if they were here. Right. Shino Abarum was not an expressive teenager, even if one was to pull back the high collar he always wore. To get his true emotions in a situation, one would have to look directly at his brain to uncover what he was thinking. At the moment, he was wondering why the world seemed to be against those he cared about. Besides his mother currently in the clan hospital recovering from losing nearly half of her Kakechu on a beer rank she needed to perform considering the short-handedness of the village at the moment, his team was in disarray. His sensei was still unconscious after 3 weeks after the vicious mental assault of Itachi Uchiha, wasting away in a Konoha hospital flanked by her students, her best friend, and her man. His best male friend had become paranoid after the Konoha crush, the failed kidnapping of Hinata, the assault of Itachi Uchiha, and the personal matters involved with his older sister becoming his sensei. Said older sister, Hana Inuzuka, was strangely hostile to some of the older generation for reasons he did not understand. She made it clear she was mad about something they had done, but he had no information as to what. The most subtle issue involved his best friend, Hinata Hyuga. She was acting strong and playing the role of Hinata Hyuga well, but he saw the cracks in this face. These were not the cracks of a shaken confidence, but something far deeper. Something truly personal, and the only visible evidence he had seen were red eyes that made it clear she had been crying. Kiba had tried asking about it, but she had reacted strongly, denying anything of the sort. Judging on what he knew about his best friend, only 2 possible events could have occurred. The first of which was that she was going to be sealed and sent to the Branch family. He understood her hatred of the seal, and his worst personal nightmare had been of the Abarum clan instituting such a terrible system. However, this did not make sense to him. If you were going to seal the heiress of your clan, you would want to get over it quickly. Especially since there was no Hokage, which meant no possible interference by higher authorities who may oppose the branding. This had been an issue that had gone on for over a week, so it was unlikely. His second guess would involve her becoming betrothed. He had become quite aware of her feelings towards Naruto Uzumaki and was cautiously approving of any future relationship. While his flaws were many, his strengths were admirable and desirable. Shino approved of him as a person, even if he did not think he could ever bond with him like he had Kiba, though they were somewhat similar. If Hinata had become betrothed, her extended mourning of her relationship freedom and the loss of her first romantic ideal would be logical. Hinata was one who acted strong no matter what. She would never say a bad word about her father, who would have likely set this up. Shino did not have any such reservations. Deceitfully, he left a construction mission early with the help of a bug clone taking his place. Strengthening his will, he marched towards the Hyuga compound where he would have a word with the clan leader. What he expected to say, he did not know. However, he did know that since Hinata was his best friend, he should try to do something to remove this burden from her. He was slowly becoming angry. How dare he Ashi? As he closed in on the compound, a familiar face suddenly appeared in his view. A tall bearded man wearing a vest and had something dangling from his lips. Shino-san, I know you figured it out. You are obviously a man on a mission. Before you march in their tags blazing, how about you discuss what you are planning with me? Asuma Sarutobi took a drag of his cigarette, trying to calm the tensed Shino. You know? Shino was confused about the situation. If it is what I think it is, yes. And probably a fair bit more than you, since I already had a conversation with Hiashi-san about it. Asuma looked down at the boy, gauging his thoughts. Difficult task considering the sunglasses and collar. Shino searched inside of him, trying to determine if he should continue his course or listen to this wiser man who clearly understands the situation more than him and seems to be on his side. As his emotions simmered down, logic made it obvious. This sounds ideal, Asuma-sensei. Shino followed the man as he motioned for them to talk elsewhere, somewhere more private in all likelihood. Shino watched him from behind as he was led towards an area he was unfamiliar with. It was on the part of town he rarely went, but it seemed toward some sort of clan grounds. Remembering the existence of the Sarutobi clan, a clan unofficially dubbed the normal Naras for their increased intelligence and talent while not sacrificing drive, he correctly assumed he was being led to their grounds and in all likelihood Asuma Sarutobi personal residence. Shino noticed the Sarutobi clan symbol as he passed through a distinct gate into a row of homes. On the second closest house on the right Asuma turned. It appeared to be not much more than a single-floor estate, but he assumed that was enough for a single resident. Shino quickly followed him inside of the house. Upon entering, Asuma headed into a small closet near the front door while Shino respectfully removed his footwear. A seal array flashed, a silencing array in Shino's estimations. This must have been particularly important if he went to these lengths. Asuma turned to Shino, looking him dead in the eyes. You believe Hinata Hyuga has become betrothed, correct? Asuma wanted to confirm what he suspected. Shino confirmed. Indeed. Looking at all available information it seemed the most logical conclusion I could foresee. And what did you plan on talking to Hayashi Hyuga about once you arrived at the Hyuga compound? Asuma asked a teenager. Shino collected his thoughts for a moment. I would have condemned him for his actions and demanded more information about who this suitor was and why he decided to break modern tradition and force upon Hinata a husband at 13. And then? Asuma wanted to know more about this boy and wanted to gauge how much he trusted him. Also, he had heard from Kurenai that he was extremely intelligent and logical. He had what one could call a hobby of determining genius. It depends on what he would say. Planning too far ahead isn't my strong suit. I am not like Shikamaru Nara, I do not have the mind to do so. Shino admitted hesitantly. Asuma studied the boy as best as he could before slowly nodding. A decent plan of attack. A lot more civil when I went in there. The first thing I did when I saw him was smack him across his smug mug. Asuma confessed. Shino was only slightly surprised by this information. So you also discovered Hinata was engaged. How did you discover this? I doubt you know her well enough to pick up the proper cues. Asuma agreed. Indeed. I only got lucky, I overheard Hinata vent in frustration to Kurenai in the hospital. I arrived a few moments after her and heard her tell the entire thing to her. I was pretty pissed, took a few hours to think about what I was gonna do and I had a long talk with Hiashi. Asuma drifted back for a few moments to that conversation and how it went. Did you discover the suitor and why they were chosen? Shino asked, almost eagerly. The who isn't much of your concern, but the why is. Long story short, political shenanigans. Someone not too much older than Hinata is getting a very important role in the village soon enough and Hiashi doesn't like who is backing him. So he decided to get his nose into it and offer Hinata as his bride in order to gain some influence. He is also adding the caveat that if he declines, she is getting sealed. That son of a bitch. Asuma looked up in surprise. He didn't think an Abiram had it in them to really lose their cool. To his credit, Shino looked embarrassed. Sorry for the outburst. He apologized meekly, embarrassed at his total loss of emotions. Asuma's hand waved it off. No problem, I said the same thing to myself when I heard that. Anyway, he expects the guy to agree once he offers the proposal, since he isn't too fond of the caged bird seal. I really don't like what Hayashi is doing, but nothing he has done is illegal. The only good thing is that I know this guy and have it on good word he is as good as he seems to be. At least it isn't a giant brat or haughty daimyo's nephew. Those bastards are the worst, I can assure you from experience. Shino couldn't help but think for a few seconds. By any chance is this person Naruto Uzumaki? Asuma stopped himself from freezing and just raised a confused eyebrow. The Uzumaki kid? What makes you think that it is him? Well, he is of similar age to Hinata and seems to have the connections necessary through his senseis and personal relationship with the previous Hokage to have an important future role in the village. He also expressed strong distaste for the seal during the Chunin exams and by all accounts is a good person despite a handful of character flaws that can be off-putting like his brashness and ramen obsession. Shino analyzed the situation and Asuma noticed an odd shift of tone in his voice. It seems you are almost hoping that this suitor candidate is Naruto. Any reason for that? Asuma pointed out. Indeed, among all possible candidates he would be the one I most prefer to be the suitor for Hinata. Especially since Hinata already has feelings for Naruto. Shino revealed to the bearded. Asuma was stunned. Are you saying that she has a crush on him? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I always heard that all the girls in your year had a thing for the Uchiha. But she had a crush on him. Asuma actually liked where this conversation was going, even if his ideal situation was to cancel this ploy entirely. Yes, mainly in his determination, glowing personality, and an attraction to his features. Shino looked away unexpectedly. Kiba-sen was insistent on why when we realized this. Asuma was interested in this development. It could be worse, but it was still inherently unfair. Like I said before, who doesn't matter. What matters is that we figure out what to do about it. The situation sucks, and I don't want to make it worse by doing something that makes it so. It's the only reason I haven't been back to the compound since. For now, I want you to do some planning about how we can really handle this situation. And probably keep it a secret since things would no doubt end up violent if the Inyazuka got involved. Come back to the front of the compound entrance by 7 a.m. tomorrow morning so we can try to figure out something. Why not now? Shino questioned. Because now, you need to get back to your team and do the mission assigned to you. You would get in trouble for dodging out. And I need to check on my team as well, since they are doing a mission without me involved. I was actually just getting back from a solo when I noticed you skipping out on your mission and marching to the Hyuga compound. So, see you tomorrow at 7 on the dot. If I'm not there, they send me on another mission. Alright. Asuma asked. Shino nodded. Indeed. I will hopefully see you at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. He began to put back on his shoes. Thank you for having me in your house. Have a good day. And with a nod of acknowledgement, Shino left the Saratobi house planning on what he could do to help his friend. What the hell? He had thought it would be easy with him, his 7 clones, Shin, and Jiraiya to find a blonde big-bosomed lady with a diamond thingy on her forehead and a brown-haired woman with a pig wearing clothes all looking out for them. But no, all they got was whispers, 2 days ago, I heard and, worst of all, just missed 15 minutes ago. This damn lady was probably either really lucky, which wasn't true, or knew they were in the city, slightly true. At least they had enough to confirm she was still there. Despite the bad omen, Tsunade kept winning small amounts, and the actual thrill of winning was too much for her to ignore. But obviously Naruto didn't know that. Now, they had to dress up somewhat to go to the Ice Fire restaurant so they could eat sushi off of a naked chick. Despite part of Naruto finding this cool, he was more annoyed about how this woman avoided them. He had been forced to purchase a cheap black suit while Jiraiya had some semi-formal stuff hidden away somewhere and Shin could reverse his clothes and throw on a blazer and it counted. Gama-chan was looking fairly empty and Naruto pitied the poor thing. And Jiraiya had warned him about getting picky about not eating ramen or that he would be having a few cups of sake with his meal. Jiraiya told him he was a man of tradition and it was traditional to have sake with Naoto Mori. Naruto decided just to suck it up since Jiraiya was paying for it. Eventually they were led from the lobby of Ice Fire into some sort of private room where the naked woman was already laying. Despite himself, Naruto was impressed by the presentation. This was definitely the more artful kind of body sushi, where everything looked like it had been painstakingly put into place to be visually appealing. He liked how the kind of rolls seemed to change across the woman's body. From yellowtail to shrimp to tuna to salmon roe to cucumber to octopus to umabashi and an arizushi even stuck out. So many types of sushi on one person's body. Naruto was too embarrassed to look at the face of their platter, but he assumed she was pretty since her body seemed pretty beneath the meal. The meal was made better looking with the added in design of flowers tastefully covering areas and the leaves the sushi were on. It was a masterpiece. No one moved much as Jiraiya seemed particularly interested in the layout of their platter. Naruto assumed it was for a plan of attack of the most perverted way to eat their meal. After being satisfied, Jiraiya turned to his 2 companions. Alright boys, it is time for your first Naoto Mori. Remember to respect the lovely and beautiful woman who has allowed us to gain nourishment from her delectable body and not to get stingy. These cost an arm and a leg, so consider this as a present or something like that. He gave a quick look to the girl that reminded Naruto and confirmed to Shin about not talking about sensitive information in front of the girl. Soon, they sat down and began to eat their meal after a traditional itadakimasu. They spoke of nothing important during the meal, their conversation focusing upon a recount of their journey, while sprinkling in the places they wanted to visit tonight, whether they be bars, casinos or residents renowned for their poker night. To the untrained woman it was just a full night, but to them it was an itinerary of where they would be hunting for the Slug Princess. Shin showed signs of getting drunk as their meal came to a finish with only a few pieces left on the most delicate places. Naruto was impressed at how quiet and still she had been during the meal, wanting to compliment her, but unsure if it was a good idea. He meagerly sipped on a cup of sake, a drink he didn't like but didn't hate either. Shin had taken to it and it showed as he was slurring his words as he spoke. Finally, when 2 pieces were left, Jiraiya stopped both boys from making any moves on them. Suddenly, he had a giant perverted grin on his face because of where those 2 pieces were. "Boys, these are mine. If you even tried to take them, I would gut you. And you better hope we find Tsunade before you bleed out so you have a chance of making it." Naruto was stunned at the pervert's words, wondering what was so special about those 2 pieces. Yeah, they were directly on her breasts, but they had leaves on them. It wasn't a giant deal. But once he saw what Jiraiya did, he felt embarrassed for the girl. No one deserved that from the old geezer, even if you were getting paid. The meal was finished, and after an awkward thanking of the platter girl who was naked at this point, making Naruto and even Shin uncomfortable, they began to make their way out of the private room and head to the first place they had planned to look for Tsunade. Jiraiya led the way, and Naruto was making sure a drunken Shin didn't take a nasty tumble. He bumped into a mass and looked up to see Jiraiya standing still. He was going to ask what was going on, but he noticed he was looking in the direction of one of the booths. Immediately he recognized the 2 women and the pig. "Tsunade Haim, this is one hell of a coincidence." Jiraiya boomed over the room. The blonde woman looked his way and rolled her eyes. "One time I spoiled myself with a nice place to eat and this pervert showed up." Tsunade looked at him frustrated, with only a bottle of sake on their table. Now, you know you are happy to see me. We haven't spoken in years, I'm sure you can make some time for your old teammate." He tried to give her a winning smile. She looked past him and towards Shin and Naruto. "Well, it looks like you got 2 brats with you. Did sensei put you on a mission with them? I thought you were trying to do that traveling man shtick." Tsunade asked, confused at the downturn in mood from the 2 sober ones. "Well, I expected you to be better informed. It happened a month ago." Jiraiya began, feeling sorry at what he had to reveal. The other women with the pig interjected. "We heard about how Suna and some other villages attacked Konoha, but they were beaten off pretty easily. Did something happen?" The women looked genuinely worried. Jiraiya mournfully nodded his head. "Indeed, Shizune. Our thrice-damned former teammate managed to kill sensei, but not without losing the use of his arms. He was behind the whole thing." Jiraiya visibly clenched his fist. "If only I had gotten the bastard sooner." He reflected upon one of his great failures, at least in his mind. Naruto watched as the woman poured 2 cups of sake and handed one to Shizune. "To Sarutobi-sensei." She raised her glass to the fallen man, and Shizune followed suit before the 2 of them downed their cups. She then turned to Jiraiya after a few moments of silence. "A damn shame, but that is what happens when you become Hokage. You die and the world moves on and fills your place. I'm guessing they are looking to fill his place still?" she asked, a hint of abhorrence to the title. Jiraiya shook his head. "No, they already voted and everything. It was a close vote, but we picked Godame. Now, I just got to get you back to Konoha." Tsunade froze, taking the comment out of context. "They voted me in. Who the hell do they think they are? Why would I want to be a stupid Hokage?" she questioned with a sneer on her lips. "It isn't you, you old hag. We are just trying to get you to be part of the Hokage's personal council. But I'm thinking you are just some phony shinobi and we don't need a senior citizen who hides her wrinkles to try and help him." Naruto spoke from the heart about his first opinion on the woman Jiraiya wanted to be his counselors. She seemed ungrateful to the spot of Hokage. Why should he want her to help him? The tick formed over her eyebrows. An old hag. A senior citizen. Gaki, who the hell do you think you are? Naruto shot a mean look back at her. "Naruto Uzumaki, the guy who will be the best Hokage ever," he informed her. Tsunade rolled her eyes. "Yeah right. A brat like you becoming Hokage. First off, it won't happen in a million years. They have real shinobi become Hokage, not blonde brats in bad suits. And second, I'm gonna give you the best advice you ever heard. Being a Hokage is being a fool. It is a thankless job that puts you in an early grave and takes you from everyone you love and everyone who cares about you. Go Jounin, go Anbu, but don't bother becoming Hokage. It is just a death trap." She gave him a short speech on why she didn't want to be Hokage. "And?" Naruto asked almost sarcastically. Tsunade was confused. "And what?" "I don't know if you know this, but a lot of ninja die young. It is part of the job. But it shouldn't be. And the only way that is going to happen is if you have a Hokage who can protect everyone in the village no matter what, and that is me. And Gigi was Hokage for almost 50 years. I think that kinda makes your whole spiel stupid. Naruto was almost offended by how easily he could dismiss her passionate argument. Tsunade stared at the blonde. Kid, I don't think you know what it means when someone you care about dies young. I mean really care about. You are still young and stupid. But give it a few years, you will see that you don't want to be a cursed Hokage. Naruto stared at her. Too late for that. Naruto's cryptic comment made her raise an eyebrow. And what does that mean? Jiraiya interfered. It means we need to talk in private. Boys, you are gonna head back to the motel. Gaki put Shin in bed and left out some water for his hangover in the morning. Read your book some more, but stay in. Me and Princess need to talk for a bit. Naruto began to protest. But pervy sage, didn't you tell me about our plan? Change of plans. Jiraiya quickly cut him off. He turned towards him and gave a winning smile. Trust me, kid. Everything will be good by the time you wake up tomorrow. Naruto looked between Tsunade and Jiraiya before letting out a sigh. Before he could say anything, the drunk teen on his shoulder said something. Hey, Naruto-sama, who is the pretty lady with the piggy? I want to talk to her. Do you think we can get her to Nyatamori sometime? Shizune blushed, Naruto put his free palm into his face, and Tsunade raised an eyebrow. Just get him back to the motel. Jiraiya let out an exasperated sigh. Not about what the kid said, something he did agree with the idea of, but on how it killed the tension. Naruto meekly nodded and dragged Shin away, who made another embarrassing catcall to Shizune about being an angel, and he'd be her devil. Jiraiya couldn't help but think about stealing that line for his next book. It looks like gray hair can't hold his liquor. Tsunade pointed out before catching Shizune's attention. But I have to say, he has good taste. Though he might be a little young for you, Shizune. The other woman was still pushing, but quickly forced the flush out of her cheeks. Tsunade-sama, please. She pleaded to her sensei, not liking to be teased much. Jiraiya shrugged. Yeah, but I'm not surprised. Danzo's little minions tend to have a bad time around alcohol. This definitely caught Tsunade's attention as Jiraiya moved to sit next to the blonde on her side of the booth. I thought sensei got rid of that little idea. Or did he just ignore it and hoped it wouldn't cause much damage? She remembered when sensei started the project and how things got wonky with it, and she knew her sensei's bad habit of letting things be. Jiraiya let out a tired sigh. I don't know, but I guess he thought it was a necessary evil. I remember him once telling me that Danzo was Konoha's darkness. Subtly during this reflection, Jiraiya cast a basic privacy bubble around their booth. They were now able to talk freely as long as they didn't get too close to them. So, was he given the role of Godame? He has been gunning for it for decades. It was obvious that she meant Danzo. Jiraiya shook his head. No, but he is the reason I sought you out. He was admitted to Tsunade. She raised an eyebrow. Really now? So what is he scheming? Jiraiya knew that she wasn't going to believe him, but it would be something interesting. The blonde kid that you nearly started a fight with? Meet our new boss. Bullshit. Tsunade was quick to call out Jiraiya on what she thought was a terrible joke. Shizune had her eyes wide in surprise at the claim. I would think so too, if I wasn't there to see it happen. He admitted to his former teammate. Were you all drunk? Or is he some idiot savant Anbu genius? Like the Uchiha kid who went nuts. Tsunade couldn't believe that the brat got the hat. Him? Jiraiya snickered. Well, we weren't drunk. At least I wasn't. And he definitely is an idiot savant, but he sure as hell ain't Anbu. Kid graduated dead last in his class, maybe 9 months. He thought it was funny seeing Tsunade gape like a fish. Shizune too. What the fuck happened then? Tsunade couldn't believe that Konoha hadn't fallen so far as to elect a kid as Hokage. Well, first off, that is Minato's and Kushina's kid. You know what that entails. Jiraiya started off by listing the obvious. Tsunade and Shizune both knew what he meant by that. He saved the village from the Ichibi who released the sucker, helped save the land of waves, prevented a coup in Taki, and has a lot of potential. The Gaki got Rasengan down pat in 3 weeks. Yeah, he was using the old shadow clone training technique, but still. He has been sucking up info like nothing else the whole time. Learned 3 others, reworked his Taijutsu style, and gave him information gathering and etiquette training in those 3 weeks as well. Kids aren't always like their parents, but he is like they are fused or something. Jiraiya began to brag about his student. Tsunade rolled her eyes. Yeah. Sounds really nice and all. But how did he get elected Hokage? He is maybe 13, and I can tell by looking at him he is an idiot. Danzo? She sighed. Right, you said something about him being involved in all this. So what is he trying to pull with this? She never liked the guy and seemed too sinister for his own good. Pretty much wants to make a puppet Hokage that will follow his will long after he is dead. Probably something more nuanced than that, but it is the gist of his idea. Since Naruto is young and has wanted to become Hokage since he was a kid, he probably seemed like the best candidate. Jiraiya surmised to her. But that doesn't explain how he got elected. He would have needed a bunch of people voting for him, how would that happen? Shizune interjected. I'm pretty sure Danzo got lucky here since Hayashi Hyuga was very against this plan and turned it into him versus Naruto. Most of the civilians were shamed into voting for him, the elders and I voted for him, and half the clans did. He squeezed in by a hair. Haim, you should be happy that happened since I was gonna put your name up for nomination and we would be here looking to make you the godame instead of his assistant. Jiraiya pointed out to her. Give me one good reason why I should head back to Konoha and help some kid sit on the D seat known as the Hokage's chair. Tsunade asked him, her arms crossed and staring down Jiraiya. Jiraiya opened his mouth, paused, and then shut it. He thought for a moment before finding his answer. So it isn't a D seat for him. I don't want him to end up like his father and die young. I just know he can change the world, he just needs a chance. And he won't find one with Danzo, and I have to keep up my contacts, so I need someone I can trust. And, him, I would trust my life with you. I was planning on bribing you and telling you it is a short-term gig until he grows up, but. Please. I need you there for him. He admitted it emotionally. Tsunade stared at him, feeling for her old partner. But she felt the subtext in his words. What kind of danger is this kid in? She asked, beginning to feel worried for the boy. Jiraiya took the nearly empty bottle of sake from the table and emptied it. Swallowing harshly, he told her. Akatsuki. From what we can tell, they want the tailed beasts. Or at least, that is what I assume from how they went after Naruto. Lucky we already left Bud. And the guys involved in it are troublesome. Sasori of the Red Sands, Kisame Hoshigaki, Itachi Uchiha, and a few other nasty figures. And those aren't even the leaders. I need to find out what they are planning and who exactly they are. And I can't do that in Konoha, but I can't protect him then. So I need someone who can. You, home. Shizune's eyes went wide at the list of those names. Those are all S-rank missing nins. She exclaimed. You are asking Tsunade-sensei to protect this boy from monsters. Jiraiya nodded. Indeed, I am. He moved to get up. I just got intel that Orochimaru is in the area and he is probably looking for you. He always respected your medical talent and probably thinks you can fix his arms. He will probably find you soon and things will only get ugly. I'm expecting your answer by noon tomorrow. And don't try to leave. I will find you. And if you want to find us, Jiraiya's face turned into a perverted grin. We will be at Koji's, room 6. I would love your company Haim and I bet Shin wouldn't mind your Shizune. I hope to hear good news in the morning. He got up and let them think about what they just learned, the silence bubble bursting. Food and sake was brought to their table after they left, but they took little notice of it. So, what are you going to do, Tsunade-sensei? Shizune asked after a long silence. Tsunade was thinking to herself, a memory she didn't want to see or remember coming to the surface. She had buried Nawaki in a black suit. And Naruto reminded her of him way too much for comfort. Finally, she grabbed the bottle of sake. I'll figure it out in the morning. And that's it for episode 2. If you enjoyed the story and want episode 3, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more what if stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.